Good evening. I'd like to call the City of Menasha Common Council Budget Review Session to order. Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have roll call, please?
Alderman Nichols, Alderman Taylor, Alderman Kraut-Kramer, Alderman Keehan, Alderman Zielinski, Alderman Spencer, Alderman Benner.
Are we okay with the lights like that for the two people on the end? First item on the agenda is the item D, people from the gallery to be heard on matters pertaining to the agenda. Is there anyone here this evening who would like to speak? Seeing no one, we'll move on to item E, which is an introduction of the city budget. I just want to take a couple moments this evening to talk a little bit in general about the budget, and then we'll move on to the four budgets that we have on the agenda this evening. So I want to talk a little bit about Menasha growing. We've been having an extraordinary couple of years now with projects, people coming to our community, and if you haven't noticed, our new construction rates are at percentage is at 0.95, which is actually higher than most of the other communities in the Fox Cities. The only one that's a little higher than us is Appleton, so we actually beat out Nina, Town of Menasha, and Oshkosh in our growth rate this year for new construction. We also had our equalized value increase about 2%. We're back over $1 billion again. Total equalized value, both buildings as well as personal property. I have some pictures up on top of some of the things that have been going on this year and last year as well. The dorms over at UW Fox, some of the construction out on the east side, the festival that we just broke ground for this week, the tower across the way. There's a lot of new homes kind of floating throughout the city. The one that's in the bottom corner is actually on Brighton Drive, as well as the new high school. So we've been really seeing a great year, and Greg and Kevin have been really busy in community development because of all the things going on. It's been a really nice thing to be happening. The other thing I want to kind of comment on a little bit is Menasha's a lot of fun. We constantly are looking at things that are going on, things that we're doing that are a little bit different. I just wanted to put a list of all the different things, and I'm sure I missed quite a few of them that are going on in our community throughout the year, but we have a lot of events for a community of 20,000 people, and we do a lot of neat things. We have a lot of things to be proud of. Some of the picture of the high school football team, that one came up one day, and I was just like, wow, we live in a really beautiful place, and we have some really wonderful people that live here, and that one really kind of caught me as well. So now on to budget stuff, the exciting numbers. Our tax rate, we're seeing our tax rate now go down again for the third year. This is our equalized tax rate. It went down about a penny this year. That's a 0.1% decrease from last year, 1.3% decrease from the year before. We've been pretty flat on our levy as well since 2002. So the levy is the total amount that we collect year to year, and that's only increased 0.4% since 2012. And we've actually had inflation of 3.5%. So you can see that we're doing I think we're doing a really good job at holding costs down and moving forward with strategically investing in things that grow our community without increasing the taxes to people. And as we keep growing, the amount of taxes charged to each person gets charged out amongst more people. So you see your tax bills go down as well. This is just showing a little bit about what we spend our money on, and I mean, it's kind of interesting to look at where the pieces of the pie come around as you go around. So I took an average house, and I didn't double check with Peggy that our average house is again $124,000. This was the number we had used last year. So the equalized taxes on that are about $1,200, which in a lot of cases is less than you'd pay for your cable bill or cell phone for the year. And these are all the different things that you're getting, and you can see over here what percentage goes to each portion of the city services that you're looking for. This picture actually was just yesterday off the Racine Street Bridge as I was walking by. Something that's not so good is our state revenues are going down at kind of an alarming rate. As you can see, the shared revenue, we had this really huge drop after Act 10, but it's continuing to drop, and that's probably 25% of our revenues coming in are coming from the state. We lost about $20,000 last year, and we're losing another $40,000 this year, and yet we're expected to do more every year. So this is something that is pretty alarming. It's pretty standard throughout the different parts of the state too. Everyone is seeing less money coming in from the state and trying to do more on our own. Good thing that's happening is we've actually reduced our debt about 23% over the past 6 years. So we were at 43.8 million, and at the end of this year we'll be down to, I can't quite see what it says, 33.5 million, I think. So paying down 25% of our debt in those 6 years is a pretty amazing thing. This is net at the end of the year. This takes into account what we're planning on paying down, which is about 3 million, and what we're planning on taking out for new projects, which is 2.3 million. It's about a $700,000 reduction though from 15 to 16. In addition, now we've closed both TIFs 1 and 2, which allows those taxes to go back to the school district and the city. So we'll be seeing, well, we've been seeing TIF 2. This will be the first year that TIF 1 will be back as part of our levy. TIF 1 is the marina and the Harbor Place building, and TIF 2 was the senior living apartments that are on the corner of Main Street and Taco Street. This is kind of an FYI thing. We get really involved in the minutia of things here sometimes, and we don't always think about how many people we have working here, or we may have never asked. So I just thought I would show everyone kind of what we have here for people. And Vicki is going to look rather alarmed because her number dropped pretty drastically from last year. Last year we had included kind of FTE type people numbers in there rather than just the full-time, and I actually had Candy look at just the full-time employees. I think you have closer to, was it like 18 or 17 FTEs? So this is just our full-time. We'll have part-time people in the library, the health department, and a few in Parks and Public Works that'll be summer help. And then we have the 68 firefighters that we share with Menasha Fire Rescue, and about 40 people over at Menasha Utilities as well. And I think they fit better than these kayakers did up in the lock. And then I just have a slide kind of about each area. And I wanted to show you a little bit about how much of the budget actually goes to those areas, what we did over the past year, and what we think we're going to be working on this year. I don't know if I necessarily need to read all these, but I'll kind of go through some of the high points. One of the things that they're very proud of at Menasha Fire Rescue is their public education, and this year they added senior citizens as well as high school seniors. They did some programming for people going off to dorms, and that was something that was new this year. So they were pretty happy about that. We're continuing our mutual aid agreements also with with Appleton, and continuing with that. Next year we're going to upgrade some of our training facilities in the fire department, and also do some increased training for both the dive team and the firefighters. Public Works, again, is somewhere around 20% of our budget. We've done a lot of different things this year, but one of the highlights was that we are now maintaining Menasha Utilities fleets, and I see Chris just walked in. We are also maintaining the school district's fleet of vehicles through our Public Works facility, and that has allowed both of those areas to reduce their costs. And I talked about cell phones a minute ago, but I didn't turn mine off. And also bring in a little bit of extra revenue for us, so that was a plus for both of us. Next year we plan on increasing our curbside recycling. This has been something that's been asked for a number of years, but this year it's come even more critical, being that we're allowed to recycle more things. And I've gotten many more calls this year than in the past. We're planning on phase 2 of the LED lighting plan. We hope to save about $65,000 a year by having that. and we're going to continue the I&I removal, which is infiltration into the sanitary sewer area. We have stopped on that a little bit over the past couple of years, and we plan on bringing that program a little bit more to the forefront again as well. So Common Council, Mayor, and Civic commemorations, teeny tiny part of the budget. Basically, it's the administration of the city, which would be my position, the Sustainability Board and the Farm Fresh Market, as well as the fireworks and decorations and things that are going on downtown, as well as any boards that I'm sitting on. Next year, we want to finish the website and use that more for economic development purposes, and continue to provide for those fireworks and hopefully celebrate some new holiday decorations. We didn't quite get to that this year, so that's something we want to work on next year as well. The library is here tonight. I think the big highlight is the number of items. Who would know that we're checking out, 250,000+ items every year? And also the work that they're doing with the Fox Cities Book Festival. They bring some amazing authors into Menasha, but also the entire Fox Cities. So it's pretty amazing, some of the things that they do. We just approved the last payment, I believe, for the roof update, and they'll tell you a little bit about some of the things that they'll be doing next year, but always exciting things happening at the library. Clerk, attorney, and elections this year, we actually bought our new voting machines after 10 years worth of work. So we'll be having a number of elections next year. We're going to hopefully purchase the Bonta building. Greg and Pam have been working very hard with some outside legal assistance to ensure that we don't end up with some environmental liability there, as well as a lot of the things that we do day to day here that probably aren't exciting enough to put up on the board. But they're always busy. The police department, for the first time in over a decade, we are fully staffed. We have a lot of young officers. We anticipate a couple more retirements next year, but I'm very excited about the fact that we are on a full staffing and we can start reducing some of the overtime, and it will help some of our officers as well lead a more normal work-life balance. For next year, they have started partnering with Boys and Girls Club, but they really want to continue that. They've seen some huge opportunities there. They are also working on some safety improvements on Racine Street. We may look at restriping, different ways to monitor that. But the big thing that they really are proud of is they ended up getting a COPS grant, and I'm trying to read what it says, procedural justice training. And what that means is treating people with respect, and that's always been kind of a mantra with our police department. And this is something that it looks like many of the departments throughout the Fox Valley are going to participate in with us, but we were the ones that were able to procure that federal grant because some of the things that we're already doing in our police department. The health department we're also doing tonight. Very proud that our influenza vaccine clinic, mass clinic, is a model for others in the state. We have people talking to Nancy and others as to how we do it, why we do it, and how they can update and upgrade their programs to be more like ours. Also really proud of our partnership with the school district that helps, that one's not even up there, but helps us both control costs and provide really good service to both areas. And even I didn't realize until this year that we have between 8 and 9 interns annually through different UW internship programs, which provide us with a lot of service. And next year we're going to see a pretty big increase in our United Way dental program funding as well. So community development, we've been really busy with grants this year. We've pretty much closed out the 3rd Street Market and the Senior Center grant. Now we're administering the One Menasha Center grant. We're working diligently on Lake Park Villas. We've had a number of developers come and talk to us that we didn't even recruit this year, so we are seeing some really good things happening in the city and some really good interest. Next year we really hope to get that Bonta site acquired, like I said, but we also hope to accelerate lot sales out at Lake Park Villas and Lake Park Square as well. And we think that that area is really set to start moving now as the housing is moving out there as well. I found this really cool picture of the pool, thanks to Chad took this summer. Looks inviting enough today. Maybe we should have kept it open. But the Parks Department, we've had a really pretty busy year as well. The Gilbert River Walk has just been completed. Coslow Park has just been completed. We've worked over at Clovis Grove quite a bit with the PTO, the PTO or PTA, I always forget, to get the playground surface put in. And next year we hope to get new playground equipment at both Woodlands Park and Hart Park, do some other maintenance at the cemetery, but and also get the lake trail. We are working on our EAB plan. We know that EAB is close by. It's not hit Menasha yet, but it will be coming, so we are continuing to take out some of those trees as the utility is hitting those areas and working together to get a start on that as well, so we hopefully don't have too many to take out all at once. I did put the brand position statement in here again. We are working to emphasize our waterfront. I mean, that's really the focus that we have in Menasha. Is people came here for the waterfront at the beginning. They're still coming here for the waterfront and the recreational opportunities, as well as some of the lifestyle opportunities that affords us that other communities don't have. And then the last one is just the workshop schedule. So we'll be having 3 nights of workshops. The 4th night will be the CIP plan. We'll be going through some of the CIP items with the budgets, but the items from 17 on will be on the 11th. And then also we'll have all the department heads here that night. So if there's budget amendments that you'd like to propose that evening, you could also propose them that evening so that the public has a chance to react to them if there's anything major before we would approve the budget on the 11th. 16th, I'm sorry. Stop me there. So I don't know if anyone has any general questions about the budget. Otherwise, I think that the library is here and ready and waiting. I have to figure out how to send this back to Peggy.
So I think you can just close that. I will take this to you.
Okay.
I guess I might start with introductions because Alderman Spencer might not know all these people, or even me. I'm Vicki Lenz, the library director. The library board president is here, that's Patrick Murray. The vice president is also here, Mary Cromer, and Chris Vanderheiden, the superintendent of schools, is also on the library board. Mary's got a statement she'd like to read.
I'm not going to read it. I'm just going to speak from the heart. I'm not from here. I'm a transplant. The first time I heard of the Menasha Public Library was about 25 years ago when my little brother, who came along much later than I did, was being homeschooled by my mother. And we lived at that time way out north of Appleton in the town of Center. And my mom, and we were still getting to know this area, and my mother would drive 40 minutes to Menasha. Because she did not know how to use computers or really microfiche or anything that they had at that time. So she would just call the ladies for the books that she needed. And so it was worth it for her to drive all the way down here to get the level of service that we have in Menasha. And today I'm privileged to be on the Menasha board because that tradition continues with not just homeschool families, but our public school families and our private school families. One thing that we're really focusing on in Menasha schools this year, and I guess I should have said I'm a school counselor at Geoghegan and Bonta. One of the things we're really focusing on this year is closing the gap between academic performance of children who have come from families of low resources and children who come from families of abundant resources. And there's nothing but research out there that shows that early access to literature and vocabulary and books increases academic success in children. And one thing I'm very proud of that we do at the library is involve early preschool age programs here. We have story times and the 1,000 books before kindergarten that we've had for, I don't know, we have to be up to 1 million. We really focus on that here at the Menasha Library, and that just helps the Menasha schools when we get those little kiddos that they already have a love of reading and a sense of community here in Menasha. And so I would just ask that when you have the incredibly difficult task of balancing the budget, that you keep us in mind and our important role in educating the children of Menasha and all the Fox Valley.
Okay, so I printed, of course you have the budget in various parts of the binder, but I printed kind of a summary off in color for you. It should be in front of you. And I guess the request that the Finance Committee of the Library Board came up with is a 1.9% increase for salaries and wages, and that would push up benefits by 1.3%. And then what the mayor actually submitted to you is operating budget, or the rest of it is actually the same or just slightly less than last year. So I will entertain any questions you'd like to.
Did you want to talk a little bit about your programs too, Vicki, just for some of the newer people on the council, some of the things that you do and where you spend your money?
Where we spend our money?
Well, I mean, you don't have to do it in order of spending your money, but the types of programs you do for kids, the types of programs you do for adults, how many books do you buy a year? I'm sure you know exactly the number of that.
Yeah,
but
I know exactly what that is.
but in general, you know.
I did hand out an annual report to the council last month or so, and it does have some of those statistics. We have about 15,000 registered borrowers, and that includes people who live in Menasha and the town of Menasha. We have 21,000 people attend library programs during the year, and that's always increasing. The kind of programs we have are story times, book parties. Like this month we're having a book party, and Clifford the dog is actually coming. We rent a uniform and we put a kid in it, a high school kid, and you can take pictures with Clifford and shake his paw, and they get really excited about that. We have music programs. Sometimes it's real refined music. Sometimes we have a polka band. This month, we're honoring veterans, and we actually have a display that we went to Madison to pick up from the Veterans Museum. It's in the fireside room. It's a great display. I strongly recommend getting over there to see it. We'll also have then the Veterans Ceremony on the 11th of the month, that next Wednesday. We're also having people from the honor flights come and talk about those. And we have a veteran in town who has researched all of the Vietnam soldiers who lost their life from Wisconsin, and he has a program about that, or missing in action. So we really like to reach out to people in our community and do things together like that. It provides an audience, and we know that there's an interest.
So Vicki puts out, I don't know if you do it all or who does it all, but you put out a great newsletter that comes out about once a week. If any of the council isn't on that newsletter, I would recommend you would. It really shows the amount of programs and the amount of people that are coming into the library. It's pretty amazing the number of things that you do on a weekly basis, as well as when you pop over there, it's always busy. It doesn't matter what time of the day or night you go to the library, there's always numerous people in there. So good job on keeping all the activities going. And it looks like we have some questions for you. Alderman Taylor?
Thank you for it. Since we're being recorded tonight for the public, a question I hear in the community is, with all the computers what role does the library continue to play? So if you could just shed some light on, you know, the, on our books to electronic media.
I just recently read that about a quarter of our population doesn't have access to the internet, and they're really counting on us to bridge that divide. And if you come in the library, you'll see that the computers are usually always filled and people are waiting to use them. We also have Wi-Fi, and the use of that is gone up, so people are using that. As far as digital materials, the use of that is also increasing. We belong to the Wisconsin Public Library. It's a consortium, and we all buy books together, and then you need a library card, so you would need a Menasha library card to download ebooks and audiobooks and stream videos. But an increasing proportion of our materials budget is going toward digital materials. Well, no, well, it's leveled off. I wouldn't say that it's increasing, but yeah, we still check out a lot of books, and most of what we check out is books.
Alderman Keegan?
Along the same lines, talking about the digital material, digital media, is that increasing, like the number of people? I know that when we joined with this consortium, I'm a teacher, so I see it in our high schools, and it's extremely popular with the high school students. Is it just that age group, that demographic, or are there people from all age groups? And
There are people from all age groups using digital materials. You would think it's the high schoolers or the millennials, but you can't predict that. Yeah,
I don't.
it's like that.
thanks.
Alderman Spencer?
There was an item on the news last night about, I think it was a senior center in Oshkosh, and how they're providing training for particularly some of the older folks that aren't as literate with computers as our high schoolers are. But does the library provide any such training?
Yes, 4 times a year we have computer classes. We have basic computers classes, like this is a mouse, this is how you turn it on. We have a class in how to use email, how to use Excel, Word, social media, and they have to sign up for those classes. We have a limited number of laptops that we teach this on, 10. But we also teach them in Spanish. We have a librarian who's a native Colombian, so she teaches them all those same subjects in Spanish.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know, Vicki, there's not many questions for you this year.
Yeah.
Does anyone else have questions for the library board or the library director? It looks like we have no more questions. So you did a good job presenting, apparently. Thank you.
That's,
On page 239, that account, what is that?
That's the library's endowment account. So basically, they get donations, and then they do special promotional items with those.
So they're getting a donation of $10,000 this year.
That's what they estimate each year. I think it's a pretty good estimate.
Thank you.
Before we get started with the Health Department section, our very astute Administrative Services Director noticed that I skipped her department. And I don't know how it got deleted off my slideshow, but it did somehow. So I just wanted to pass out that one page. I quick ran a copy of it. Because we had a couple things that were pretty important that happened this year in the Finance and Administrative Services Department. We actually created the department. We now have HR working with Peggy and located on the first floor along with her. We saw a debt rating upgrade. We are now investment quality debt, which we weren't before. We actually refinanced quite a bit of our debt again, and we are able to save over $300,000 a year on that refinancing by doing that. And these are all things that Peggy really pushed and implemented within the department. So I wanted to make sure that we actually got a chance to talk about these things. Next year we have numerous other things to do, but one of the biggest ones we want to work on is actually reviewing all of our TIF districts and making sure that we understand where they're sitting and how they're going to perform over the next few years. We have done a good portion of them. We've not done all of them at this point, and then working on some of our policy manuals and employee recognition plans within our HR department. So just, I don't know how that one got pulled out, but it did. So then we can move on to the health department. Did you want to start out with anything, Nancy, or? I don't,
Yeah, there we go.
there, that sounds better.
So, good evening. I've completed my first year. I made it. It was very enjoyable. I have to tell you, I thoroughly enjoy our staff at the health department. I think they're professional, very capable, and really care for our community, so I want to commend them. And they have done a good job orienting me. I also want to thank the Common Council and my colleagues that are department heads and the mayor for their guidance through the year. It's been an extraordinary learning experience, and I thoroughly enjoy it. So it's been great. With that, I did pass out a budget review summary for you. This is what I used last year so that you could navigate your way through our expenditure accounts, because we do have so many. So if it helps just to have something to look at and kind of guide you, I hope that helps.
So do we kind of want to go through each one of them just as we
Sure.
go down? So the Employee Safety Committee is the first one.
Sure. The Employee Safety Committee helps us comply with state and federal safe workplace regulations. And we have a coordinator that's funded at 20% FTE. And what you see before you is really just a slight increase in the budget due to personnel costs, benefit, and salary.
Does anyone have any questions about what that budget does or what's in there? Okay, the next one is the Sealer of Weights and Measures.
Yep, the Sealer of Weights and Measures, it is actually a program that's provided, you have to do it, it's state mandated for municipalities with a population over 7,500. And what it does is it makes sure that when companies, businesses are selling items, that the customer is getting the value from that item. So the sealer does verify, you know, all of the items that are sold by weight. So you will see one person at 0.2 or 20% FTE. We do have a slight increase in that budget, and that's due to, again, personnel costs, and also because we're anticipating a little bit more work next year with the new businesses that are coming into Menasha.
Does anyone have any questions on this budget? So this one is entirely funded by the fees that we collect from those businesses. The health department,
The health department we are a level 3 health department, which is the highest level health department that you can be in the state of Wisconsin. And in order to be a health department at that level, that designation, you have to provide a number of services, including communicable disease follow-up. This budget is basically both school district contract and tax levy. So we do school-based nursing services, we do disease surveillance, we do TB testing, refugee health services, and prenatal care coordination, generally to high-risk individuals. You will see the budget has increased some, basically, again, personnel costs. We do have a stable staff that has been with the health department for quite some time, so you will see those costs rise with, longevity. It's a good thing, to have staff that are there. We also, I'm looking at just a couple of the items. I think that they're slightly higher, but otherwise pretty stable. Basically, the personnel costs and the benefits, so forth, are what put this up a little bit.
the one that we had talked about, Nancy, was, I think it's under department, right? Which was your vaccines that we had been budgeting for differently. It's not really a
That's the one that I was
change,
looking
but
at. We do have vaccines. It's, the department 30-18. We do have vaccines that we purchase, and then we actually get a revenue for those vaccines. So it's offset.
and we hadn't been recording them
Nope, we hadn't.
in the budget before.
Right, we
which
haven't been
we should have been.
indicating that as
So-
an expenditure. Thank you for mentioning that.
So, and this is a really unique program, being that we're 50% funded by the school district. I don't know if there's any others in the state, but it's been a great partnership.
It's an
both
excellent
of us.
partnership, and it's a strong partnership, particularly with our schools and the population of children that we have.
Does anyone have questions about the general health department budget? No? Environmental health?
In environmental health, again, you will see a slight increase due to salary and benefits. We were able to secure funding through FDA last year, $5,000. So in the 2015 budget, you'll see that slightly higher in some of those areas because we were able to purchase equipment and supplies. So that was carryover funding that we used to do that in 2015. But otherwise, this is pretty stable, pretty level.
Any questions on environmental health? Health, health screening 60 plus is the next one.
Right. We are very fortunate to have a senior center and also to have a program through Winnebago County funding called Health Screening 60 Plus. We have one nurse that's designated to coordinate that program. Services provided are blood pressure screenings, wellness clinics, where they actually do laboratory services, and foot care. And so she really works closely with the senior center staff to manage those programs. Another good program that's very popular is the Memory Cafe.
Any questions about that? Alderman Keegan?
Thank you. This is entirely funded by sources outside the city.
Correct.
Okay.
The majority, 25, it's pretty much remained steady at 23,551 that we get in every year. And then some of the services that are provided, such as foot care, do provide some revenue that offsets the expenses, supplies and so forth.
Oh, Alderman Benner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a question about our registrations and pretty much that we've had a pretty big reduction in that. 'Cause I always worry about people keeping up on their continuing ed and people's budgets. A lot of times they'll try to cut
Right.
people's memberships out, or, you know, where they get continuing ed opportunities and stuff. What's the difference here where we dropped $375 there?
That basically was a special registration for a foot care clinic, and it was a one-time, or a foot care educational opportunity. It was a one-time educational opportunity. The nurse that provides these services is also our maternal and child health nurse, and she also does prevention, so there are other opportunities where she does have continuing education.
Okay, because I just saw in 2014 we had about $800, and then we dropped down to 2015.
No, and
where we
I
had
do think that
$375.
the registration in 2014 was for the actual educational opportunity, and then the 375 was for the certification.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Alderman Taylor?
I know something with the seniors with the foot care is important, and, excuse me, could you just tell the public, I see you offer a bi-monthly foot clinic, and where is that done at, and how is that done, and is it private? And
Actually, there are two opportunities for our seniors in the foot care clinic. One is through VNA. VNA comes, they have been doing this for a long time too, and they have provided that service, and then it's that popular that, you know, our public health nurse also provides that service. The technique is slightly different because of the educational background she has, but there are several opportunities then for seniors to take advantage of that.
okay, is that done at the senior center or at the health department?
Yeah, the senior center, it's done at the senior center. When the renovation took place, they did designate a health and wellness room. So it's a very private area where seniors can have that service provided.
So that's a one-on-one private?
It's a one-on-one.
Okay. And how do they register for that? And what is the window of opportunity for, is it a day or 2 days? Or?
Yep, the public health nurse puts out a list of dates and times, and they can contact the senior center or the health department for to register, you know, for that, or make an appointment for that.
Is there any cost?
There's a minimal cost. I'd have to go back and look at the actual cost. There's a minimal cost. And of course, because we're city servants, we do not accept tips. So
Okay.
it's a health service.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
Looks like the next one is the radon grant then? Is there a page?
Prevention program?
Oh, I'm just going down yours. Okay, so there's no radon grant this, oh, they're just
Yep,
in
there
different.
is a radon
You got
grant.
them in different order on
I'm
the book
sorry.
than on the. Okay, prevention is next in the book.
The prevention grant is a grant-funded program through the Department of Health Services. It's been in place for quite some time, and that particular grant program really funded the Corny Community Walk, and it is to promote physical activity and good nutrition. So the partnership this year was really looking at working with Parks Department, Farmers Market, local businesses, fire, a lot of those different departments and businesses to really get people to use our natural resources and trails in the city, and kind of promote that as a lifestyle So it's been very successful, and I'm pleased to say they did accept our objective for next year to do the second Corny Community Walk. So hopefully we'll be able to keep moving forward with that. That budget is small, but it does a lot.
Any questions about that? Alderman Taylor?
I saw a map of the radon, where it highlights what areas have the most radon, and I was really shocked that both Menasha and Nina have tremendous radon, levels of radon in our community. And is there, because of that, is there extra grants for that, or is there extra?
Actually, that's the next program up, and that would be the next page. And we did see an increase in that grant this year, and the target objectives are shifted. The program will be focused on educating realtors and builders as well as the public, still making radon kits available for people who would like to test for radon, and then education and assistance in how to mitigate that.
Those kits are available at no charge at the health department?
I think they're $6 a kit.
$6 a kit, okay. And is there any studies with the high radon levels in the Fox cities here I know we have very high levels of cancer in Winnebago County too. Is there any correlation between that? Has there been any studies done?
I'm not aware of a specific study done in the Fox cities, but I can look for you. And I think you hit the nail on the head. That is a concern that people do have. So
There certainly is by the data out there. Thank you.
yeah, thank you.
Do you have anything else on the radon grant?
No other than to mention that it was an increase in funding this year.
Does anyone else have questions on the radon grant? Okay, and the next one after that is the school health aides.
The school health aides work with the public health nurses under their supervision, and they're in the schools. So this is funded by the school district, and it's funded by actual costs. So, you know, the health aides are available at the schools 3 hours a day, 5 days a week during the school year.
Does anyone have questions about that?
Just their role in schools.
Their role, they're actually trained to assist.
He was just commenting that James didn't have his mic on.
Oh, I can't
So if you
see.
could repeat the question for
No,
everyone.
yeah,
I was just asking the school health aides what their role is in the school system.
well, they do assist in administering medication at the schools. They are trained to do this. We do make sure that they have appropriate training. And this is, you know, sanctioned by DPI, so they do promote this also, the training and the use of health aides. And like I said, they are reporting to the public health nurses, and they are there 3 hours a day, 5 days a week during the school year to assist children.
Any other questions about the school health aides? The next program is the dental program.
The dental program is, you'll see just a slight reduction. This is a program that's funded by the United Way and through medical assistance dollars. And it provides dental screening and fluoride varnish to children in the school district and to preschool children. Interestingly, dental cavities are the most common chronic disease of childhood. And low-income families are disproportionately affected by tooth decay. In this particular city, because you have a long-standing, strong program, the decay rate is pretty good, low, but it takes working with families, making sure there's good screening, making sure there's preventive services. So this is what we call primary prevention, and it is successful. I just looked at the numbers today to get a report for Chris, and basically, in 2008, there was an all-time high of tooth decay at around 18% of the population, and this year, it's dropped to 11%, which is really, it's a good decrease. But I think it's a long-standing, strong program where people are using evidence-based practices and good partnerships, both with families and with the school district and with the health department.
Alderman Zelinski.
Thank you. Which program works with the parents for educating the parents on how to take care of the
All
children?
of our program, this program and the dental sealant program. So there is, this one does more outreach. So they do attend like registration for schools, and they do, when they screen families, if there are problems, we call parents and follow up with them and make sure they're alerted to this. We also have a referral network because, you know, sometimes it's access to dental services that people need too, and so we have good, strong referral networks.
Okay, thank you.
The next item is the lead prevention grant.
Yes, the lead prevention grant, we just saw a little slight increase in funding this year, and this program monitors lead in children through blood tests, so we actually get reports of the lead in a child's blood. If it's higher, it might indicate they're having a problem. And of course, you're aware of lead paint in some of the homes and how that has to be mitigated. So we have one nurse that continually checks all of these reports and makes sure she contacts the parents and the healthcare provider if she sees an elevated blood level.
Alderman Spencer.
Thank you, Mayor. So the testing, is that done with the authorization of the parents?
The testing is done by healthcare providers, and then it's sent to us, so we see the tests, and then we can look at whether or not it's high, and then we can work with the provider to get retesting done, and then also with the families to see if there's other guidance that they need to mitigate the lead in their homes.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Next one is the immunization grant.
Yeah, we saw a slight increase in funding this year, and this really makes sure that we have vaccines available, and that we are assuring that infants 24 months of age are up to date on their recommended vaccines. We are on track to meet or exceed our goals for 2015. I'm glad to report. So, but when I look at Healthy People 2020 and what our goal is for the nation, we still have a ways to go. So we need to really support that.
Any questions on that one? Next one is maternal child health.
Maternal and child health also has seen a slight increase in grant funding, and what this program is designed to do, it's a state-funded program, Department of Health Services, and people work toward goals to make a collective impact. So we work with the Fox Valley Early Childhood Coalition. There is a nurse assigned to this. There are selected priorities that we work, for example, promoting breastfeeding, promoting safe sleep, those types of issues, making sure people have their car seats for their children fitted, those types of issues.
Any questions on that one? And we have dental sealant program.
This is the other arm of the dental program. You heard about the screening and the fluoride varnish and educational program. the sealant program is another evidence-based program. It's funded by the Children's Health Alliance of Wisconsin, the Seal a Smile program, and also by Medicaid funds. So even though you see that the request is small, it's offset by Medicaid funds that are brought in when we place the sealants. The grant that we use through the Seal Smile program requires us to use medical assistance funds to offset program expenses.
Questions on that? Oh, I'm sorry, Will.
Okay, not a question.
Sure.
We just want to thank you, being a teacher in the district, for all that you guys do. The kids love seeing you there. One of our goals is better attendance for our students, and these programs that you've put into place and that we continue to do on a yearly basis are really helping these kids attend, and that's what we
Thank
do.
you, Will.
So we
That
very
is
much
a
appreciate
good
it.
point. With dental disease comes missed days of school, and that has been well documented. Thank you.
So the quality improvement grant is not funded this year. And the next one is bioterrorism after that.
Okay, bioterrorism. Basically, this is one of the grants we use to, along with our immunization grant, to manage the mass influenza vaccine clinic that's held annually. And it's an exercise, bioterrorism exercise also. So we have the Medical Reserve Corps that joins us, a myriad of volunteers that join in putting on this clinic. And as Mayor Merkes mentioned, this is a model for other communities. This year we had at least 3 counties represented that came and observed. And so we're very proud of how this has been a model for other communities in Wisconsin. The funding, we have been able to secure additional funding this year. The Common Council approved the Ebola supplemental funding, which helped to pay for all of the work we did to prepare for monitoring travelers from West Africa. And we're able to use that also to buy some equipment that helps us to assure safety of our masks, our respirators. So it's been a good year, and we do have some funds that will probably carry over into 2016, which offsets the expenses.
So when we were going through this budget with Nancy, she shared something that I thought was pretty amazing, something they came up with when they were monitoring for, I think it was Ebola. And instead of exposing our staff to people that may or may not have been infected, we didn't know, they were using iPads and FaceTime and allowing them to show the thermometer and their face in the iPad so that they could do this remotely, which I thought was just an amazing idea and something that keeps our staff safe as well as protecting the public. So kudos for you for doing that.
Yep, and I have to say, you know, the IT folks came and helped us set up the iPads for this purpose, and we were able to find one to give to the traveler. So the traveler had the iPad, and so did the public health nurse, and they were able to work together.
Any other questions for Nancy on this budget? 24/7 coverage is the next one.
24/7 coverage is covered by grant carryover funds, and it provides for our iPads and for our telephone.
Questions on that one? And the senior center is the next one. I think that's the final one too.
Yes, it is. So the senior center budget, you're going to see a slight increase. They are going to put some lock sets together and work on some AC during the next year, and so the building is up just slightly for that purpose.
So for Alderman Spencer, we've been in a partnership with the Y for 4 or 5 years now, and they actually manage the center and provide all the programming, and we pay them a stipend to do that. We've actually increased the programming, the usage significantly, and reduced our costs by doing that. So it's turned out to be a really great partnership for our people, also being able to use the Y programs as well then. So it's, did you have some as well? Oh, I'm sorry, Alderman Taylor?
Director, I wonder if you could just, since we have the public's eye with this and you don't get to speak too often at council
I don't.
meetings, if you could just, a brief description of who the senior center, what age groups and what services you might offer there.
I'm happy to report that. Thank you. The Senior Center really warmly welcomes anyone age 55 or older. And it is run by, it's a partnership between the city and the YMCA. So they offer YMCA programming at the Senior Center. We are guided by the Committee on Aging. So they have their meetings monthly there. And programming is put on both by, like I said, the YMCA itself, but then there's also, our public health nurse that actually comes in. The total visits for last year were 16,802, and dipped a little bit when we had the renovation, but now it's back up again. And there's a myriad of programs that they do, and they do put out a a newsletter, a newsletter called the Chatterbox every month. So,
And is there a program that offers meals at
there is. Advocap offers meals at the Senior Center at noon.
Is there just a lunch, or is it breakfast?
It's a lunch.
Lunch, and is there a cost?
I'm not sure about the cost, but they could certainly check with the Senior Center.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Alderman Benner?
Thank you. Nancy, I'd like to just jump back a little bit. Something just kind of dawned on me with you're talking about the iPad that you're using with Ebola person and stuff. Is that a healthcare compliant iPad? So that is it healthcare compliant that if somebody, like, let's say if somebody did have a disease or something, or they had that,
we would work to
get cleaned up and
disinfect,
be
or
reused? Yeah.
we would work to disinfect,
Because with a lot of that-
or we would not be able to use it. So
yeah, but it's not a standard conventional iPad. It's one that can
we
be
used
cleaned
a
up.
standard conventional
do?
iPad, and travelers are not.
All of our iPads go out in a case. That's protecting the iPad, so we could just get rid of the case and repurchase the case for the iPad
okay.
if we needed to.
Okay, thank you.
But you're correct. That is a concern, the disinfectant piece
Yeah,
of it.
thanks.
Any other questions for Director McKinney? I think we went through all of your budgets. If not, thank you for coming tonight. I was thinking Greg was up next.
I just want to say quickly, someone that I deal with quite often, having the older district, is our city sanitarian, Todd Drew. And I'm glad to see that we have a partnership between Todd and the police department, the code enforcement officer, the fire department. With our older structures, we have a lot of needs at times, and they really do a great job out there in the public, helping us to maintain the quality of life out there that people should expect in their neighborhood. So certainly appreciate that.
Thank you for recognizing that.
He's a great employee.
Thank you.
Okay, the next areas up in the budget are the attorney and the clerk and the elections. It looks like Pam's all ready to go, so we'll let her start.
The most obvious change from 2015 to 2016 is as a result of the creation of the Administrative Services Department, where 35% of the city attorney's salary and benefits used to be charged to personnel, and that is not the case for 2016. The other change, 1 day a week of the deputy clerk administrative assistant position that Sue Strauss is charged to the city attorney. You'll notice that the primary expenses in the budget are for wages and salaries and benefits. As far as changes, other things, I did reduce the legal line item, which is outside counsel line item, by $3,000. These funds are used in case of conflicts of interest, vacation, sick, if there's a scheduling conflict, or if I'm double booked. Also consultations with attorneys who have areas of expertise in something specific, such as environmental real estate or something like that. It's based on an average hourly rate of $250 times 60 hours. The hourly rates vary for attorneys from about $150 an hour, and the environmental real estate $580 an hour. So, you know, 250 is what I took as not necessarily an average, but just I guess a rate that I thought would be appropriate. Other than that, the department line item, you'll notice, has increased, and that one includes process server fees, subpoena witness fees, court filing fees. You know, it just depends year to year if there are going to be expenses coming out of that account or not. We have had an increase in the costs on appeals from a municipal court case, and this is as a result of, in OWI cases, oftentimes there's also a prohibited alcohol content citation, and if a defendant appeals one citation, it forces me to appeal the other one. We each have to pay the appeal costs for that. We haven't had to do that in the past, but that's just the way it's been turning out over the last couple of years. And I increased the training line items related to what was in personnel, were training related to risk management and employment law, and so I adjusted this one to take that into consideration. And I guess that's it.
Does anyone have any questions for Attorney Captain? Seeing no one, we can move on to the clerk's budget. Sure. That's oh, municipal court. Do you normally do municipal court?
The municipal court, page 14. There's been some articles in the paper on this, and just looking for where is the court at this point with, is it, can you just kind of explain it to the public a little bit, how the court is, functions? And apparently in the paper there was an article that said we were pushing some red ink, and I was just wondering where we're at with this, and if you could describe the process here, how it's shared.
Is that something you can do? Is that something that Tim normally would handle, or how?
Well, I think you just asked what the process of the municipal court is. So if you want to handle that part, I can talk about the article that you saw in the paper
Okay.
as far as the funding a little bit.
Thank you. Doesn't matter who does it. but,
Yeah, I just don't know the municipal court process, so if you wanted to tell me about that, I can pick up the other side.
As far as the municipal court process is concerned, there is a municipal court judge that's elected. The court, I believe that the court personnel has a full-time assistant. I mean, it isn't anything that's under my jurisdiction or
Oh, okay,
anything like that.
okay. I was just wondering,
And then
Is-
the municipal court judge,
is it shared between both cities? Is there, do you know?
There was a study 15, 20 years ago when we started this, and the percentages are set at, is it 45, 55, I think?
Yeah.
Something to that effect, but there's a set percentage based upon when we started the court. So that's how it's set. It's not set based on number of tickets or anything like that. It's a percentage that was agreed upon when we started.
Is there somewhere a description or a breakdown of that system and how that's funded and how it's organized?
Funded and organized.
There's a
Do we have
page
someone from our-
in Nina's budget. The Nina finance director oversees it, I believe, along with the attorney and the
Okay.
judge and his assistant.
In our police department, does it reflect that in our budget too?
Our
Is there-
police department,
No.
not to the best of my knowledge.
Okay.
The fund is negative. I think a couple years ago, the statutes changed and they could charge more for citations, a higher administrative cost, and they thought that was going to take care of the problem. Well, it started to take care of the problem for a while, but then what happened was the number of citations issued by Nina had gone down quite a bit. Menasha's changed just very slightly, but Nina's went down a great deal, and that put the fund even more negative. So as of right now, from what I understand from the police chief and the finance director from Nina, is they're watching it. Nina is carrying that burden at this point, so you won't see any of that in our budget. This is just like a annual rental that gets paid to use the municipal court area wherever they hold it. And if it doesn't turn around in the next couple of years, the cities both will be asked to fund the difference. And I think the last time I talked to Mike about it was when those articles were in the newspaper, and it was something like around $100,000-ish that the city of Menasha would be asked to fund at some point in the future if it doesn't bounce back.
Okay, and who is the overseer of this? I mean, instead of, if they come back and say, but actually you lost $50,000, you know, I mean, who oversees this whole court system?
I don't know. It doesn't, I don't know anything about that. I just hear about the financial side on the flip side.
With that type of money out there that we could be on the hook for, we certainly should probably put something together here to better monitor it, I would think.
That's not something that's under my purview as well. I know there's a lot of people involved with it, and they know all these different pieces. I just found out because I asked about it when I saw the article in the paper.
I'll further my discussion with the mayor and then
They are NINA employees as well as an elected official, and they would be under the jurisdiction of NINA for the personnel on that area. Of course, the judge is an elected official, so he would not be overseen by anyone else. The dollar, like Peggy was saying, the dollar amount was supposed to, actually this was supposed to make money if you read the study, and it has never made money. It has lost money, I believe, almost every year since its inception. It was always a small amount though, and we, like the finance director had said, I'm gonna get your title right eventually, the administrative service director had said, we had increased those court fees and it did start to turn, and that was always our goal, that it would break even. So we will be looking at that again in the future if this
well,
is
it sounds
something
like
we're
there
gonna
is some
continue or not.
accounting that if, as Peggy said, the Menasha Police Department wrote this many tickets and Nina Police Department wrote fewer tickets, and then.
But that's not the way the agreement's set up. It's not set up by number of tickets. It's just set up on a strict percentage. So if it goes over and there's a surplus, the percentage is split that way, or if it's under and there's a deficit, it's split that way.
Now, sounds like it should be performance-based, and I think it would warrant us looking into that agreement. I know I was here when they put that together, and it was supposed to generate some income here to or at least break even.
And it's something that we should look at. Do we want to have a municipal court anymore, or do we want to go back to the county system? What would that do? And what the value of having a municipal court is. A lot of the things would not probably be taken up in court if we did not have the municipal court, so.
It sounds like a good opportunity for an ad hoc committee to look into it and bring their findings back to the council and give it a go around. Thanks.
Do you want to do the insurance portion too, or?
Well, I can speak to, you cannot have performance-based municipal court. How many, I mean, if you're talking about how many tickets should be issued per year or something like that, that is illegal.
I guess maybe I chose the words wrong. I'm just trying to look at the general discussion, and it was said that the tickets we're kind of holding our own here, and it was said that the other community has kind of dropped off quite a bit. So I guess I was just looking at the burden that was being put on our committee, and it sounds like our community, it just sounds like we really need to look into this situation if we're this type of dollars, if we're $100,000 in the negative. And if I choose the wrong word to say performance-based or whatever, I apologize for that, but I think it's noteworthy that we look into this.
Just looking at different ways to distribute the cost to the court is what you're looking for.
And maybe we do go back to the county system. Thank you.
Attorney Campbell?
And the fees that are charged are limited by the state statutes as well. So it's not like you can just raise your fees. We're not allowed to do that.
You're already at the maximum, from my understanding.
Correct.
You can't get your light on?
There it is.
There you go.
2 times now we kind of jumped around a little bit, Mr. Mayor, and maybe you should just explain to folks that we're following this table
Sure.
of contents, and you know that, like, this topic, we would have got to it in 2 more.
I get it that
So,
there's.
well, there was a
yeah.
coalition there, I
Mhm.
understand that,
Yeah.
that, you know, that
So
was
we-
the second time, and it's just easier if we just keep going through
Okay.
succinctly rather than kind of jumping around a little bit.
Sure.
Thank you.
I did think that the mayor was wrapping it up. That's why I jumped to this. I thought he said that was it, but the city attorney. Okay, so that's why, I thought we were ending the discussion on this, so that's why I brought that up. Thank you.
There is actually one more that the attorney handles here. I'm not sure where it is on the list. So, the final one that the attorney handles is
It's right
not
on-
in order.
It's right, it is. It's right on the list.
Yep, well, 213, but clerk and elections are in the middle there, so why don't we do insurance as well on page 213, and then we'll do the 2 with the clerk.
The insurances are based on either estimates that I received from CIVMIC or from, I did just receive a couple of actual quotes. So they're either based on quotes or on estimates that were provided from CIVMIC. You'll notice the last account there, award and claim settlements, and we have a $25,000 deductible through CIVMIC. And so I was recommending that we put in two $25,000 amounts in there for 2016, based on some possible outstanding claims.
Dr. Stino, did you want to explain a little bit about that this is more or less a fund as well, and how the insurance all fits into the rest of the budget?
So insurance is Fund 733. We label it as an internal service fund. And what that does is it charges all the other departments, much like some of our public works funds, much like our IT fund. In each department budget, you'll see a line, whatever the department and division number is, with a 5103. 5103 happens to be the insurance amounts. Those amounts come back to this fund. This fund does have a fund balance. I have some history. 2009, it was 67,000. 2012, it was, or 2011, it was 132,000. 2013, it was 180. In 2014, it was 200, just over 200,000. And if two full self-insured reserves come out, two 25,000s or 50, it likely could go back to approximately 180,000 at the end of 2016. Knowing that we have a certain amount that we pay out in deductibles, I think that's a fair amount.
Does anyone have questions about the insurance or the insurance fund? Alderman Taylor?
Peggy, the last slide, award and claim settlements.
That's the one that Attorney Captain was just mentioning because of some ongoing cases. We put in there two $25,000. That's our deductible. So we have two per year, 25 up to 25,000 per claim. So that's why that's in there.
Thank you.
Anything else, Attorney Captain?
I just wanted to mention too, that's just on the liability side, not including fire. And I think 2014, that might, you see what the amount was there. Part of that was, there was a fire claim that was not in the budget. It all of a sudden came up. So just wanted to mention that.
Anyone else? Okay, then we have the clerks and the elections budget. Do you want to go through these, Debbie?
On the clerk side, there isn't a lot of change. It's slightly less, a little bit because of registration and training. And I do more of the training comes on the election side. I do training on clerk side, but more of it comes on the election side. So I also, my cost for training was down last year because I am a member of the Wisconsin Municipal Clerks Association, and I'm also one of the directors. And when I was that gave me a little bit more that I can attend more of the free training. So I was looking for more free stuff to attend rather than having to pay for things. So otherwise, there really isn't a lot of change, is there?
Well, we're going to embarrass you now because you did receive an award
No.
from the Municipal Clerks Association this year. I had meant to grab it with me when I went out. What was the actual award? I forget exactly
It
what
was
the
the
title
President's Award.
The President's Award. So Debbie does a lot with the Clerks Association and was actually recognized at the state level. So congratulations on that point as well. Anyone have questions regarding the clerk's budget? Yeah, everyone else's light doesn't work when yours is on, that's right. Nothing regarding the clerk's budget? Okay, then the next one after that is the elections budget.
And that one's a little bit higher. It's a little bit different. That one, of course, in 2016, we will have 4 elections, big elections. We have a mayor election coming up in April, and we'll have the presidential in November. I've included added cost for my poll workers, and I did include, Peggy, did you include that increase? for the poll workers?
Included whatever you gave me.
Okay, that's what, yeah. An increase for the poll workers. Like, we also like to, at the end of the election cycle, which is every 2 years, we like to have a little lunch for our poll workers. And I plan on doing that again with the city of Neenah. We go together on that one. Training, you know, we are getting new machines. Should have them next month delivered. And we'll start training our poll workers on that. So new machines and training, so I increased the training budget a little bit. I increased the postage budget because of changing polling places. I want to notify the people in those districts that their polling place is changed. And I'll do that in January. I don't like to do it in December. People get all the holiday stuff. They'll misplace it, so I'll do it in January, closer to the election, and notify people. So that's, you know, other than training and increase in salary for poll workers and actual more poll workers I'll need for on the busy elections.
Alderman Taylor?
Clerk, our new equipment, our new voting equipment, what is the projection on the life of that equipment?
Well, you know, it all depends on how well it's cared for. I mean, these last ones we got 20 years out of. We purchased in 1995, and we got 20 years worth. The average, they say, is 12 to 15 years on these machines.
Thank you.
Anyone else? No? Oh, that's all of them, correct?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
all I have, right?
So the next person up is the community development. And I saw Kevin here a little while ago. Are you ready, Dan? Okay. Okay, Greg, we're going to go straight down this list to try to make it easy. It's the one that's right in the front of your book, since you have about 20 different accounts here. Yeah. So hopefully that doesn't mess up your presentation too much.
The way I set up.
Okay. Okay. I'm guessing that's the way Peggy has them up on the screen, is in that order, right? Okay, so the first budget that's on the list then is the inspector budget, and that's on page 15. Greg, do you have any comments about that budget? And
Well, the budget amount is pretty much uniform with, you know, the approach we've taken in the past, and this is something that is kind of a shot in the dark, because oftentimes we aren't aware of major projects that might be coming forth. For instance, not in 2015, but in 2014, we had one project, the school district expansion and rehab of Menasha High, which was over a $30 million project, and hence the building inspection fees and amounts paid to our contract service go up accordingly. But it's kind of a revenue in, revenue out scenario. The contract that we have with our building inspection service provides for the contractor retaining 90% of the building inspection fees, and then the city retains the balance of that. So this is, building inspection is by and large a self-funded sort of fund.
Alderman Zelensky?
Thank you. Greg, last year we talked about it during budget time about getting our own inspector, specifically specializing in residential properties and letting the commercial stuff be outsourced if.
Yeah, and
What
And-
happened?
Well, we got a little busy this year, plus I was without, another planner for half a year this year. Kara had left late last year, and then Kevin didn't come on board until June, so I was very much shorthanded for half a year. We're still exploring that concept, and our contract inspection service, IAL, has been bought out. I believe this was through a stock sale by a company called Safebuilt, and it's operating the same way as in the past. We've done some assessment of, how this would impact us if we were to hire our own inspector. It's likely that if we hired one inspector, we would need to budget in the range of maybe $65,000 or $70,000 with the, salary and roll up. And if that, just the residential building inspection fees probably wouldn't support, that amount of cost. However, the other thing that's about to transpire is that community housing coordinators and the person of Mary Bach is about to retire. And my thought would be to allocate that function, a lot of what functions she's performing, to our in-house building inspector. And my reasoning behind that is that quite a lot of the work involved with doing our housing rehab program and our loans for that involves a process whereby the individual who's seeking assistance makes application, and they're qualified based on income, that sort of thing. And then Mary would go out and view the property. She would write the work specs for that, whether it's a new roof, or foundation repair, plumbing, electrical, whatever it was. She would prepare those work estimates, and then would send that out to, we have a list of contractors who are qualified under our CDBG program. She would send it out to the contractors, solicit quotes, bring that back, then that would be presented to the quote would be presented to our housing authority, and then they would decide whether or not to fund that particular thing. So those components of what Mary Bach does, I think, could be handled by the building inspector. The other pieces of it, Mary does a lot of coordination with the county housing authority and the people from the Department of Administration, so higher level stuff, and that part of it would, be handled within community development. So if we were to marry the building inspection and housing coordinator function, that would get us to a level where we could support this in-house building inspector. And beyond that, you might ask, well, is that person going to have the time? And I did make that kind of inquiry with our current inspector. She says that she spends about 32 hours a week now on inspections, residential inspections, and so that would suggest that there would be another 7.5 hours in a week wherein she could work on housing administration or housing program coordination or other things that we may assign to that person.
Well, we don't have that person selected, so that person might be licensed to do commercial property. I don't know how they break it down.
Right, and I mean, it would be good if we could get other certifications along with that, but we would still need to have a contractual arrangement with another entity to backfill our building inspector position, regardless of what certifications they have, because that person can be on vacation, sick, or whatever else might transpire. and it's quite likely you're not going to get a single person that's certified in commercial electric, plumbing,
Yeah, but we could, maybe we could work with the police department, because we have a code enforcement guy that's getting licensed further along to do some of these inspections too. Maybe that could be incorporated together somehow, because we're having code enforcement out there, then he's going back to talk to an inspector. And some of these things I don't know if he's enforcing them or not, or is that still in limbo there between your department and the code enforcement? Because that was brought up a while ago, that those two should be working hand in hand.
We have weekly meetings with the code enforcement individual, Christie, who does most of our zoning administration, Todd Drew, oftentimes Vern from the fire department participates. So we're attempting to coordinate this. I wouldn't say that we're where we want to be.
Is there any indication midway through the year or something?
Well,
So I expected something coming forward this last year, and then all of a sudden you guys got busy and.
Well, because of this, this sort of change in ownership, I think that's going to prompt us to do some things. The other thing that's being sort of looked at is whether the city would become a certified city, wherein we would then, rather than plan inspection being done at the state level, our contractor would do, or if we had a qualified building inspector, would do those plan reviews, and then the city and or the contractor would do those fees. So, and I'm meeting on Friday with our contract provider to talk about that. I'm not convinced that's in our interest, but it's something I'd like to explore.
Yeah, Appleton does that, because I thought you had to be a certain size city to get qualifications or the right to even do the plan reviews, but.
Well, as Kevin was explaining to me on Tuesday, there's different levels of certification, community certification, and we would be, a lower tier. And it has to do with this building volume or that sort of.
Yeah, they're not afraid to charge. Thank you.
Director Kyle, we know that, you put both oars in the water here and this year, and you're under a lot of demands, especially with your staffing levels reduced. So the community certainly appreciates that. I know the council does. And I think we have an opportunity here in the community to shore up our inspection of especially rental homes and making sure that we're providing quality housing to people that sometimes don't have a voice in the community. And I think that's a responsibility of us here to make sure that the housing is safe, a safe environment. And I think by having a home inspector, and if we can become that certified inspector to take that off the state, I'm confident that the fees and everything that we take in can help pay for this position. And we may have to look at changing the fee structure. I think there's an opportunity here that we need to license landlords in the community. We're almost a 40% of rental property in our community, and certainly that affects how the properties are taken care of, and some landlords don't care. I look at Alderman Zelinski owns a lot of property in the community, and it's very well maintained. You would think someone that his property it would be someone that would own the property that lives there. That's how well he maintains his properties, and if everybody maintained the properties like he did, we'd be a better off community. So this is something we really need to, I think, get our hands around this year and move forward in a couple different ways of looking at this, because if we start to let our housing stock deteriorate and not maintain our rental properties the way we should, and just because we have the lowest rents in the Fox cities because people don't take care of their rentals is not, that's not a, it's not a good thing for us. And we need to make sure we have quality and safe housing opportunities out there for the public. Thank you.
Anyone else on inspections? The next two are the Valley Transit subsidy and the dial-a-ride subsidy. Deborah was so kind to give us her full narrative from Valley Transit and Appleton, so don't ask Greg too many technical questions on that, considering he didn't write it, but you'd like to elaborate a little bit, Greg?
Well, the Valley Transit, the 2016 request, $172,165. That amount is what the city would be paying out. However, we do get grant reimbursements that come back in over the year. So I believe our net local share for Valley Transit for this function is $38,019.
Does anyone have questions about the Valley Transit budget? Do you want to elaborate a little bit about dial-a-ride too?
Sure. Well, dial-a-ride is like a specialized transit function for handicapped persons or persons that are not able to use a cab or other means of transportation. And there is a fee that is charged for that service, and the fee that is charged by Valley Transit exceeds what is collected from the individual. I don't recall what it is offhand. It's probably around $14.
Not sure.
And then the city is asked to subsidize that by $4 or something. I'm not sure of those numbers because I haven't looked into that for a while, but that's sort of how it's set up and what those funds are being expended.
Alderman Zelinski?
Thank you. Do we do that through the local cab company or through Valley Transit because they have their link or?
Valley Transit has a contract with another provider to do that. I'm not sure who that is. It's changed a couple of times over the past 5 years. I'm not sure who's the contract provider.
I think we have a local cab provider here and we have no say in their business at this point.
No, just
nor should we.
say, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So the next budget is the general community development budget.
Okay. Well, there's some changes. As you know, Kara Holman left employment with the city of Menasha late last year and is now employed at Outagamie County. Kara was employed as a principal planner, sort of classification, and her salary grade was higher than the replacement position, which was at the associate planner level, and now that's occupied by Kevin Engelberg. So, so we've had a downward adjustment in our community development salaries, as well as in the wages component. Last year we had 3 interns authorized, and this year we're down to requesting 1 intern. So that was the changes in that position or in that regard. And then beyond that, we don't have a lot of other programming expenses. Under management, we have that 23,000 figure, and 21,600 of that was to pay community housing coordinators for their assistance with our housing program, and the remaining balance would be just general things that the community development department may need over the course of the year. And then we have $3,000 in there for appraisal if we are in a position where we are in need of or are desiring to acquire a property for city purposes. I'd like to have the ability to have some fund there to undertake an appraisal. The next category is marketing. That number has likewise decreased, and we had elevated that in 2015 primarily to accomplish the creation of a video for the city of Menasha. That is nearing completion, and it's being done over the course of the year, and so we're waiting to get fall seasonal shots. So shortly after the first of the year, that should be put into place, and then components of that will be also incorporated into our website. So it was that, and then we've also tried implementing a bit of our brand strategy that was developed the year before. So next year, what I have proposed in the marketing, the main components of that are $8,750 for the Fox Cities Regional Partnership, and we have a sister amount to that in our TIF 6. So that gets us to $17,500 for the dollar per capita that the regional partnership is requesting, and then we've added another $2,500 on top of that to get to $20,000, which then gets us a seat, a capacity to have a voice on the governing board. And that was the same arrangement that and dollar amounts that we had last year. So of that $21,250, all but $10,000 of that is going to the regional partnership, and then the remaining $10,000 would be used by my department for general marketing functions.
Did you want to continue on the?
There's, you know, the remaining things, you know, we have some membership in various organizations, mileage, registrations. There's not a lot of change that we propose in those categories.
Okay. Alderman Taylor, did you have some questions?
The Fox Cities Regional Partnership, what is the total amount that we're putting in that?
In total, our contribution is proposed to be $20,000.
Okay. And this has been in existence for what, about 4 or 5 years? And how, City of Appleton has withdrawn from it, is that correct?
The city of Appleton budgeted, this is my understanding, they budgeted funds for regional economic development initiatives, but for economic development initiatives, but they haven't granted those funds to the regional partnership. And, well, I don't know all of the details there, but there were some initiatives by the regional partnership that were maybe not handled the best way as they approached the city of Appleton, and that created some adverse feelings between them and Appleton and the partnership. And it was somewhat of a maybe a personality thing with Barry Burkhart. Barry Burkhart is now gone from the partnership. He's on the West Coast or something. And there, a couple of the other communities issues. But they've been working to resolve that, and I think we've got good service. They've been visiting our business community. I've been on several of these business retention visits, as has Kara in the past. We were just on a waiting this week. So we get that, and we, Menasha is not going to be the beneficiary of, an effort by the regional partnership to secure a, 100-acre industrial development. We simply don't have the geographic base to do that. But, we're all, Fox Cities is a community, and the extent to which, a major employer is brought in, our people can work there as well. And that's kind of, I feel that even though we may not, receive the tax-based benefit associated with major industry coming in, we still garner the benefits of one income that's generated by it.
So,
Well, so how many communities are not funding this now or dropped out of this?
I don't know, James.
Okay.
It was a fair number of them have, and then they're all budgeting for this in 2016. I was informed yesterday that Outagamie County, which had not funded the partnership in the past, is now funding it at 25 or 30,000. So Calumet County is still on board, as far as I understand. They were in, or whatever their population this was, 50,000.
Just went over 50,000.
Just went over, but last so, and again, the regional partnership was, as you indicated, James, a new organization, and I think they've gone through some growing pains, and keeping the 60 municipalities or so that are in their sort of region, keeping them all happy on the same page, it's a pretty daunting task. But I think they've learned some things about, you need to approach things perhaps a little more delicately with communities and try to understand what where the boogeymen are before you kind of just leap into things, and I think they've now acquired that knowledge.
What is if you could put your hands on a direct benefit that Menasha saw through this, what development came to Menasha because of this?
I mean, you could ask that question, I think, pretty much of any community in the region, and economic development is not the type of thing where you say A plus B leads to C. There are many hands involved in making these deals happen, and the role of the partnership, say, in business, in trying to businesses in, is they find out from a site selector that this company is looking for a 30-acre site on rail with sewer and water and all of that, and then they reach out to the communities to inquire whether they have such a site, and then also the community would provide back to them the information that's necessary. Do they have the services that are required? What are they asking per acre? Is there other assistance that may be available through TIF or revolving loan funds or whatever services may be available? And then beyond that, the regional partnership would put together like regional employment and demographic information, workforce sort of characteristics, ages, so all of that stuff, and they bundle this up and then push it back to this site selector, and then that goes into their decision making, the company's decision making process, whether this site or this region is correct or not.
Something I heard at the groundbreaking for Festival Foods the other day was festival. They say they have their marketing people out there. 6 years ago, the site that they're building on, the numbers weren't there. They have their people that are out there looking for those numbers, and they ran the numbers again last year, and they found that the area out there could sustain one of their grocery stores. So I think a lot of companies have their own private companies that they hire to go out there and look for these opportunities. And it seems like with the Fox Cities Regional Partnership, that their first model that they came up with was kind of blowing up. I think they were looking for, we were told that the Fox Cities didn't have the right model to get a very, very, very large company here, that the infrastructure and the, for instance, let's say, like a car factory or something that they were looking at, this big thing that we could bring in here to create thousands and thousands of jobs, that we didn't have that. And then it seems like they kind of changed their focus a little bit after that, and they changed their name a couple different times, and it seems to, I don't know if the city's getting $20,000 worth of bang for our buck here. So,
So I'll add a little bit. I sat on the board for a year at the chamber, and it was a very eye-opening experience as to what's all going on at the chamber, as well as what's going on at the partnership. It's $20,000, not $200,000 as well.
I said 20,000.
Oh, it sounded like 200 over here.
I said
so.
20.
Okay.
I asked Director Kyle the number. And
Okay, good. It sounded like you just said 200, so I just want to make sure that was
20,000.
Okay. So there are several different focuses, though, within the regional partnership. It's not all about just how do we land that next automotive plant here. Two companies in the city that they were really pretty instrumental in helping kind of navigate some of the state programs and the city programs. Faith Technologies got a lot of help from them with some tax credits and different things that they were working on that helped
Is this
keep
the
them.
chamber, or is this?
This is through the partnership. They're tied together, but they had that opportunity to go to any of their other regional corporate headquarters, and they helped us keep them here. Same kind of thing with Simply Incredible. They helped with some of the state financing and different programs that were going on, as well as what Greg was talking about, showing us the numbers that this brings into the community and the jobs and that economic benefit to the community. They are scaling back a little bit on the attraction end, because we realize growing and maintaining our companies that are currently here is probably the best way to grow economic development and employment within the valley. So they are partnering, this year they partnered with Green Bay, so we only had to spend half as much money for the site selector tours, and next year they plan on partnering with Green Bay, Fond du Lac, Oshkosh, and the Fox Cities to bring those people into the region. Site selectors aren't looking at the Fox Cities, they're looking at Northeast Wisconsin. So this way we can share those costs. That's been a very successful program. I think we've had about probably 20 site selectors up here, do you think? Something in that effect. And they've all been, their number one thing that they've been impressed with was Fox Valley Technical College and the quality of the skill set that our employees have and the training that they have available to them. Another program that they just did was called Talent Upload, and this brought IT professionals into the Fox Cities. We have a lot of millennials that wouldn't even consider looking at the Fox Valley. All that they look at is, ooh, small town, that's not for me. And they brought college students from the Chicago as well as Michigan and other Wisconsin areas to the Fox Cities and changed their impression of what the Fox Cities was. They did make 2 or 3 hires out of those people that are now living in the Fox Valley and create a lot of buzz with some of those other IT professionals that our companies are desperately looking for. We cannot fill those positions. They're really difficult to fill. So this is one of their initiatives. But they're really focusing on employee retention and attraction that helps bring the businesses here as well. If you can't fill the positions once you get here, you're not going to bring your business here either. So it's a multi-pronged approach. It's not just about bringing that next big factory in.
And as of this date, they have brought nothing to Menasha. That's what I just heard from the
Well, they've worked on both Faith Technologies as well as Simply Incredible. They've had meetings.
But they did not bring them, introduce them to us and bring them here. After they were here, then they worked on something with them.
Well, we work together on things. Things don't happen in a vacuum. If we can't talk and work together, no. You can't, I don't know who you give credit to for a lot of these projects. Who do you give credit for Festival Foods? Do you give it to
It sounds
Greg?
like their marketing department and their, that's what I took out of it, that they were looking at this property here, they were looking at this corridor, and then their marketing department finally found that the numbers worked, so I would give
Or
it
do you,
to Festival.
or do you give it to Bob Drifka, who is continually reminding them that this property
From what I heard
existed?
from the CEO, it was,
So,
that they hire these companies to go out and find these corridors for them to build on. So how many cities are in this for the public? How many cities are in this Fox Cities Regional Partnership?
I'm not going to be able to name them all off the top of my head, I don't think, but Outagamie County is, yeah, I'm going to have to kind of go through the ones that I know, and I'll probably miss a couple, I would guess, as well. But Outagamie County budgeted for 16, as did Calumet County. Winnebago County contributes indirectly. Appleton has budgeted, we have budgeted, Neenah has budgeted.
But Appleton hasn't put their money into it,
They've budgeted this year
but they haven't
for 16.
for 16,000.
They have money in the budget for 16. As
They're
does-
in it for 16,000 Appleton.
No, for 2016, they have budgeted. They did not contribute in 15. As the same with Outagamie County, did not contribute in 15, but they're planning on 16, from my understanding.
So maybe I'll shorten that up a little bit. Who's in and who's out?
That's what I'm trying to tell you. Who I think is in 16 were the ones I was listing. Neenah, us, Appleton has budgeted, Little Chute has budgeted, Kaukauna has budgeted. Who else am I missing, Greg?
How about Town of Menasha?
Town of Menasha has never been in. They may have contributed a few $1,000s on occasion. Harrison has left.
Okay, I'll make it that way. Who is left? Harrison is left?
Harrison, Grand Chute. I don't know if Grand Chute's planning on coming back this year or not.
Kimberly is left.
And Kimberly, I believe, yes. I think those three have left and don't plan on coming back, yes. Or I have not heard that they're coming back. So,
I'm gonna look for a little more information before our the 16th meeting, so this kind of sounds kind of vague here, and I'd like some more information, so I'll be looking for that. Thank you.
does anyone else have questions for Greg about the general community development budget? The next one is a Big E urban redevelopment. Is there $150 or something in there? 200. 200? Okay. You have any comment on that one, Greg? Probably
Yeah,
not.
that money, I think we put it up the house or something.
Okay. So we have the housing rehab program. Why are they in? Oh, okay, facade improvement. Yeah, it's not on 157, the housing rehab is. So do you want to talk about both of those, the housing, and, well, you already talked about housing, I guess, a little bit, as well as facade improvement? Oh, is that
That's
why I
Fund
can't find
203.
them?
You're thinking of the revenue account that actually says facade?
Oh, is that where I am at 157? Is that a revenue account? It is, look at that. No, it's not, it says expenditures. There is a housing rehab on page 157, I'm not sure. This isn't a revenue account, is it, on 203?
That's Fund 203, otherwise known as facade.
Okay.
I think the other one you're thinking of is 263, Fund 263, and that'll be coming up on page 161. All of the community development budgets go in order,
Okay.
low page to high page.
So the facade, okay. Oh, okay. So the fund for the facade improvement program was originally capitalized out of some common block grant money that was actually received by the city for economic development projects. One of those was the original bankroll restaurant. The city received a grant from, at that time, it was department it was at that time. But anyway, the city received grants from the state to facilitate the development of the bankroll restaurant. And about the same time, we received a grant to facilitate what was a recycling facility over on Railroad Street. The city received those funds. They were going back to those businesses. They were partially repaid to the city, and then the businesses went bankrupt. But that was the original source of funds for the facade improvement program, and that fund has been drawn down ever since that occurred. There's two components of the facade improvement program, a grant and a loan program. The loans are at a 4% interest for maximum $10,000, and it's on a 10-year, $10,000 with $1,000 payback each year for 10 years. And the grant piece of it is a matching grant up to $2,500 per facade. So this fund has been dwindling. We've had not much activity in 2015. We had some activity in 2014, and we're looking at a couple of projects in 2016. If we are going to continue with a facade improvement program for our Main Street, we're going to need to look at ways of capitalizing those funds to a certain extent in the future. We had made an attempt to do that when we created TIF 7. We did right into the project plan some facade improvement capacity. However, that district has not been performing to the extent that we can start building money forward for that purpose. So again, just looking toward the future, if we are going to, have that kind of program for our downtown, we're going to have to look at
Does anyone have questions about the facade improvement program? Alderman
And that's
Taylor?
administered through the Landmarks Commission?
Correct.
Correct, okay. And that's on page 157, $10,000?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So page 158 is actually TIF 1, and TIF 1 has been closed for 2016, so you'll see the last payment that went back to the city last year in the $82,608 to repay the money that was fronted by the city over the years has been repaid. We have closed that and put that back on the general levy at this point. Does anyone have questions about that one? Okay, and then 161 is TIF 3. And Greg or Peggy, you have comments on these numbers?
I don't have this fund all analyzed, but what I can tell you from looking at it from the budget last year and this year is TID 3 is supposed to close soon. The spending period is over. It looks like TID 3 is probably going to need to be distressed. So that's something we need to work on in the next couple of months.
And TID 3 was the headquarters of the Bonta, and the problems came in when Bonta closed and all the computer equipment came out of that building. We were receiving, I don't Do you remember how much in computer aid for that building? It was a very significant amount, though. Yeah, and that's what led to this TIF underperforming at that point.
Isn't that replenished by, with Faith moving in there, though, the computer? No?
They had their servers and main data center within that building. The whole second floor of Bonta was basically computer equipment for their servers. So that's TIF 3. Housing rehab program on page 168.
This program was likewise capitalized by state grant funds. The city received housing program grant funds primarily for special projects. Recent years and prior to that, just general housing rehab assistance. And those original grants were loaned out to property owners, qualified property owners. And as those loans are repaid, as people move or sell their property, they recycle back into the loan program, and then we go out and relend those funds through our process that I described when I was talking about the building inspector and our release through our housing authority. And these are, I mean, we never know, you know, which properties are going to be sold in any given year. So these numbers are just kind of placeholders. If more homes sell, more money comes in, and more money can be lent out. If there's less, then the opposite is the case.
Alderman Zelinski.
Thank you. How much money was put into that fund, and how much money did we recoup? This has been going on for quite a while. And
yeah. Well, I think the original grants were back in the 80s, so I'd have to kind of go back through the years and see what kinds of funds were awarded to the city and for what purpose. And in the early years, some of those program funds were put in as forgivable grants. So if you lived in the house 5 or 7 years, then the loans didn't be paid back. So there's elements of that in there as well. I can put that number together, but I don't have that at my disposal.
Well, we're almost leaving the residential area here, and I've been discussing this for a long time. The older areas are getting left behind in the city. And we've been talking about, that's why I pushed really hard for a building inspector that I could talk to and call with my concerns, but that just keeps going on. I don't know if it's not deaf ear or it's financial or something else. And we're not sticking any money really into the older areas, but we're giving $20,000 to this regional thing, and I think we should be redirecting that money. If we were talking about places for these people to live, why don't we make this a nice community to live? It is nice in some spots, but some of the older spots are really starting to look worn down. And we should start infusing money instead of always in the downtown, start looking at where these people are actually living.
Well, I don't disagree with you. And you know, I think code enforcement can help, but it's not going to kind of get us, you know, to where we want to be with our housing stock. And in order to do that, I think we'll have to find ways to generate funds for that. One of the ways we can do that is when we write our TIF plans, we can make expenditures within a half mile of that district, and we can write that in. And I think we put in, like when we did TIF 13, I think we did a contingent project, you know, to enable us to do that. But, you know, because we've got all these other obligations that the TIF has to meet prior to us having the availability of excess funds for that purpose, you know, we're not going to be able to access that for some time to come. So, I mean, if we were ever to get in a scenario where we got was performing very well, then we would have resources. Unfortunately, where our TIFs are performing well are our greenfield TIFs or industrial TIFs that don't have that, area of distress associated with them. Having said that, there is another capacity that exists within the TIF law whereby you can extend the life of TIF for one additional year and use those funds for housing assistance. But again, like, retiring these TIFs, but because we're distressed, if we have to distress them in order to get the city paid back for money it advanced into it, then for 2 or 3 years, then we can't add that other year on top of that. So I'm not giving you answers that are helping.
You're not helping my neighborhood at all.
Right, but there are possibilities out there. I mean, if the city got to a point, it could do a borrowing or a loan program, and then we could administer those funds. And there are different models. I had intern on Yes looking at what some of the other communities are doing to sort of generate these funds and stimulate the housing rehab. And there are models out there. It's going to take financial resources to capitalize a fund, and it's going to take staff resources to administer it, do the inspections, and do the specifications and monitor the program, and all of that. So it's something I think we need to do, but we have to apply resources.
I've been hearing this for the last, I don't know, I've been living here for I don't know how many years. Our area was distressed and it was going to be taken care of, and nothing came forward. We stick millions and millions into the downtown, and a lot of it lands in the landfill. When are we going to get a concrete thing for these older neighborhoods? I know it's hard to come by, but man, we just keep plowing in TIFs that go distressed. And it wasn't just because of the tax; it was the downturn and everything else. But we're putting these TIFs together on a shoestring, and we're hoping that they fly.
But you've got to remember too that the model that was used to create the TIFs back in the 80s was far different than the model that we're using today. There were, if I look back at those old TIF plans, well, they were all, they weren't developer financed; they were city financed. There were assumptions made about, tax rate continuing to climb, about, that were maybe overly optimistic in terms of projections. And so as a result of that, when things don't materialize or don't materialize to the extent that we think they were, well, then we have that issue at the end of the TIFs, like stressing it. But having said that, I mean, you look back and where would we be had we not created those TIFs? And, I mean, you knew what this place looked like in the 70s.
Yes.
And had we not
A lot of my neighborhood's looking like it did back in the 50s, so but we're worried about this neighborhood in the 70s. But I need there's got to be some infusion that they could do to these neighborhoods, or some enforcement that, and I talk to people, well, maybe I'll drive down that way someday. Well, that someday it seems to never come for us. Thank you.
Alderman Taylor.
For time's sake, I echo everything Alderman Zelinski's saying. I have an older district, and the three of us do. Alderman Nichols, myself, and Alderman Zelinski have the older neighborhoods. And I think we do have an opportunity to really look at helping these neighborhoods, and especially with our high rental numbers. I had a lady call me on the 800 block of Milwaukee Street. Alderman Langdon was her alderman before, and now she's kind of leaning on me because I'm 2 blocks away. And the realtor told her that she can't get enough rent out of her properties that she's trying to sell a property. Her husband passed away, and she's trying to sell a property, and they can't generate enough rent because of the city's rental properties. Some of them are way too substandard properties, again, lower rents, and it's not good for the community, and we need to bring these properties up. We do focus on the downtown a lot, and Greg had mentioned that the TIFs in the 80s weren't done properly. Well, I don't think our current TIF 13 was done properly. We had an opportunity here in their community, and I know the TIF didn't support everything that we wanted, including the parking out here, but those numbers should have been recrunched, I thought, and I think we could have saved a couple $1 million on not having a parking ramp go into our distressed neighborhoods and help the neighborhoods. And we need to really we're not doing that. We really need to really look at our neighborhoods, and I'm glad to see that the health department, the police department, code enforcement, fire department are working together, some building inspector. But with our 40% number, we need to address that number. That's a serious problem for us with our rental properties, and somehow we need to use that to our advantage. We have an opportunity, I think, to license landlords, to maybe license properties, and I think we can get that number to sustain a residential building inspector. And it sounds like we can become a certified building inspector too, to take care of the state of it. So it's something that we're not paying attention to, and we need to, because as cities grow, certain neighborhoods deteriorate, and then we all know, if you talk about Chicago, it's the south side, and north side of Milwaukee, south side of Madison. Everybody kind of picks a side of the town that's not doing well, or somebody doesn't want to live, and we don't ever want to be that. Fox Cities is a great place to go so far, great place to live, and so far we haven't had that determination throughout the Fox Cities. And I think the reason that we haven't is because every mile we have another form of government. Here, the 9 of us elected officials are sitting here and trying to make our community better and better, and I think that competition is great in the Fox Cities, and we always try to do better than our sister or brother city around us. So as Alderman Zielinski said, we have an opportunity here to make it better and bring us up a couple notches here. So somehow, some way, we're going to have to figure out how to do that.
So Kevin, would you like to talk a little bit about, is that what Greg's poking you about as well?
I just told Kevin that's his segue to solution for the future.
Well, I think that if you look back 5 or 6 years, the code enforcement has really created a pretty dramatic improvement in some neighborhoods. It hasn't fixed everything. Well, it has. I'm not saying it hasn't. It's fixed everything, but it has created a pretty significant increase in enforcement in some areas, and actually we've seen some pretty big upgrades in certain neighborhoods. There are still areas that we need to do more. You see, even like right around the downtown on Broad Street, there's several houses there that have just been upgraded very substantially. There's one on Name It Street that I know just got completely rehabbed. I mean, there's one on Taco Street that's getting completely rehabbed right now as well. On 3rd as well. Yeah, there's a couple of them on 3rd that just got rehabbed as well. Kevin and I have been working a little bit with Habitat and their Rock the Block program, and this is a program that focuses a lot on exterior improvements. And if you want to talk a little bit about what we're trying to get Menasha involved in, hopefully next year.
Yeah, so we've been working with Habitat. They did their first, what they call Rock the Block program in Appleton. I believe it was a couple months ago, and the way the program works is that Habitat will approach different property owners, and they will sort of go over their properties or houses with them and try to diagnose what are some of their obstacles. If they're not very mobile, they will help them, look for ramps or things like that. And what they do is they do this program where they get a lot of volunteers from the community. We're talking a couple hundred. And for one day, they go through a neighborhood and fix up like 20 houses. I mean, these aren't full reconstruction jobs. They're mostly fixing up the siding, replacing the windows, sometimes doing the re-roofing, etc. But that is something I've been working on a lot lately, is trying to get one of those programs in Menasha. Currently, we are looking at 2 different sites for the program. We've been giving Habitat a lot of information so that they can make a decision. It is competitive. They are looking at different communities as well. But I guess I hope that we have 1, if not 2 programs next summer. We should be hearing within the next couple of months whether or not we have that opportunity in front of us next year.
And the way this works is you would get a loan or a grant through Habitat for the materials, and then the labor is donated. So these are fairly low-cost repairs for the owners. Some of them are, they did a few rental properties, but most of them were owner-occupied properties. It's already spurred probably 4 or 5 neighbors of the properties that got rehabbed to do work on their properties as well. Several front porches, front staircases. I mean, these are all things that are really important to the appearance of the neighborhood.
Sometimes it's landscaping. They did 1 or 2 commercial buildings as well, where they just kind of fixed it up and secured the buildings so that either animals or people wouldn't get into them. So I think there is some opportunity to do that as well.
This is the area, the neighborhood where Pierce Manufacturing originally was on Spencer Street.
Yeah.
Yeah, is what they had done. Alderman Taylor?
Well, I appreciate this council taking action last 2014 in May to request that Habitat has hard surface driveways, and we added the garages. This council voted on it, and on the 100 block of, and they told us that, you know, there was talk that they would never build another Habitat in our community because we put them under that type of codes to have a 22 by 22 minimum size garage. And before that, I thought their housing was substandard. Big gravel driveway, chunks like that, running when it rains, running down in the curb and gutter, and building a little shed that you got a hard time putting a couple bikes in. And this council took the initiative to add garages. There's a brand new Habitat on the 100 block of Broad Street, connected garage to the house, concrete driveway, and it looks beautiful. It fits our community. I think it fits our what we want to be, and for us raising that bar and then stepping up to that level is a good thing for the community. They are working currently at a house on my block at the corner of Broad and Walkie Street. I've had to call Habitat, tell them to cut the grass. It's like that. While their construction people park on the front lawn. They've rutted up the lawn this deep with their vehicles. They can't walk from the street or use the driveway. They park all over the lawn. It looks like hell over there. I had to call the police department. I have wheelchairs, power wheelchairs in my neighborhood, and they block the sidewalk with their construction vehicles. So they haven't been a very good partner as far as coming into a neighborhood and rehabbing it. You need to have some respect for the neighborhood that they're working in, and we'll see what their projects, rehabbing these houses. The jury's out on as far as I'm concerned yet. And Mayor mentioned a house on Broad Street that was rehabbed or whatever. That was due to a fire, and that was the insurance for the home. So things aren't just happening because people want to stick this money into it. And we got a long way to go, as Alderman Zielinski said, in our neighborhoods, and we'll see what happens.
Well, the one right next to the one that you're talking about was rehabbed on their own. The one on Namath Street was. The one right next door to my house was, as a matter of fact, as well. These things are happening. There's one on First Street that was just done. These things are happening, but I think we can give them a little push to continue. Okay. Well, if you would like to put a program together and put some dollars to it, we'd be more than happy to look at that. So item on page 177, did we just do this, TIF 4? Did we go through that one, or is that where we're at? Okay. Do you have any comments on this one, either Greg or Peggy?
Before, that was needed TIF 4 was our own development project, and that extends up to, we extended the boundary of the time up to a third of the Scene Street and brought in some additional properties for that. It suffered a little bit from the decline in property values. When the office buildings become vacant, the assessments are also often reduced, and so it's been suffering a little bit from that. We have seen sort of a resurgence in our occupancies in our office buildings, and we're hoping that continues.
Do you have any comments on this one, Peggy?
Don't.
Anyone from the council? TIF 5 is on page 178.
TIF 5 is our Midway Business Park. That TIF has been performing very well. As you know, this year we did a transfer of funds from TIF number 5 to TIF 13 to facilitate our office tower project in the downtown. That has not distressed in any way. TIF number 5, it continues to perform, and we do have some staff time in this TIF. There are a few lots still out there in the Midway Business Park, and in addition to that, there's some development work that has been going on there. Last year we had the Fox Lodge expansion, or this year, sorry, we had the Fox Lodge expansion. That's the student housing dorms by, not dorms, but units by UW Fox. We also have the Quick Trip for in 2015, although that building is not in the district, it's adjacent to it, as are some property that was assembled to create the parcel for TIF, or for the trip.
Does anyone have questions about TIF 5? This was one of the ones that Peggy had done the analysis on, and we didn't see any issues with this TIF. So page 183 is TIF 6.
TIF 6 is also one on Midway Road. It's that area, the Kenwood Center, encompasses the apartment or the senior housing development behind it, and then it goes out across the road, Midway Place, Subway, and over to Piggly Wiggly and the Affinity facility across the street. That TIF likewise has been performing well. The 8750 that you see in there for 2016 request relates back to the partnership, the Park Cities Regional Partnership.
Does anyone have questions on this TIF? Okay, TIF 7 is on page 184.
TIF 7 is the Marina Place development, which consists of apartment building and condos. That district has had some ups and downs as well. When the original developer, PRDC, through bankruptcy proceeding, units were sitting vacant, and there was a downward adjustment of the property values at that time. I believe all the condo units are now sold, occupied, the remaining one for sale. And I think the apartment buildings also been performing better, so hopefully we'll see an uptick in values in the future.
Any questions about TIF 7? The next one is TIF 8 on page 185.
TIF 8 is the Headwaters Conduit Project on Broad Street. Likewise with that facility was constructed, say, early in mid-2000s, and then it went through this similar cycle where with the economic downturn, the units weren't selling, there was a decrease in the valuation of it. Now, again, all those units are occupied, and we think that district will be performing better in the future as well.
Any questions on that one? Okay. TIF 9.
TIF 9. This is out along Province Terrace. This is a mixed-use district where we have essentially the commercial core along Oneida Street and Province Terrace, and then there's residential properties to the east of that. The Southfield West subdivision was one. Some of the Barker Farm Estates divisions was another, and it has been performing very well. As of 2015, we've generated almost $23 million in increment in that district, and it's been and will continue to perform. I don't have a specific dollar amount on the festival development, but it's a 70,000 square foot building, so we're assuming it's going to be 5 to 8 million, somewhere in that range, and that will again contribute to increment. There are a number of other vacant commercial parcels that remain out there, and that district is going to continue to perform well. We do have a fairly substantial amount of staff time in there. 12% of Kevin's time is in there, and 10% of mine. We have been and continue to put forth a lot of work in that district, either on the planning, economic development side, or with respect to this Province Trail construction, which is a major budget item in the TIF 9 for 2016. And as you may recall, the Province Terrace Trail, there's several components of it. One is from Nature's Way heading north up to Midway Road. Pieces of that have been built and continue to be built in that leg. And then the other piece going south from Nature's Way to the Highway 10 114 intersection, that was our initial focus of a transportation enhancement grant that we had applied for in 2012, I believe. The feds changed the rules on what was to be considered the start of construction, and we could not physically meet those timelines. So we did an analysis of funding this locally, and as our consultant went through that analysis, the cost of doing the program locally versus using those federal funds came out substantially equal, with the prime reason for that being that the loadings on the boardwalk that the feds were specifying was 20,000 pounds per square foot, and our consultant put together a proposal whereby that loading would be reduced, I think, to 10,000, and that saved us quite a lot of money. In addition to just all of the overhead associated with those federal grants, we had to have these management consultants kind of reporting, and there's a lot of bureaucracy associated with that, so it saved that piece of it. Our real estate acquisition, the threshold for that is much less under locally funded projects than federally funded, so we saved some money there as well. In 2014, we had asked for authorization to proceed with doing this trail as a locally funded project. We had budgeted for the engineering for that project, and that is currently underway, as is the negotiation for land acquisition. In 2015, as you can see, we had 60,000 plugged in for engineering. The other 130,000 relates to one piece that was just recently approved, and that was the 110,000 to go to Mike Hagan's development for the land acquisition along that 114 pond. And then the other remaining 20,000 is for acquiring a portion of a piece of property that is, fronts along Oneida Street, but is long and narrow, and the rear component of that would be acquired to enable the trail to go through it. Moving into 2016, we have some additional money budgeted for engineering. I don't have a specific project or component of that, but I thought that we may need to do some additional engineering out in that Providence Terrace corridor next year. We have a little bit of money in there for marketing the city-owned lots there. The 50,000 that's in there for land acquisition is primarily a placeholder. There's only 2 properties that would need to be acquired to enable the trail extension. One being this property along Oneida Street that we're already including in the 15 budget, and then the other 50,000 is essentially a placeholder. Quick Trip is the owner of the remaining property that would be needed to extend the trail, and they've been engaged with a proposal for them to just donate that property to the city. It's primarily wetland, and it's not developable. There's, if I remember correctly, there's about 6 acres of that, and then we would need to either get fee title to strip for the trail, or they would have to provide us an easement to get back to 114. And that's being negotiated by our consultant. The big number there, the 450,000, is for the trail construction. And this number has grown from what we were projecting earlier, and it's caused primarily by a shift in the trail route. There's more wetland than what was originally anticipated, so our costs associated with that go up dramatically from an asphalt trail to a boardwalk, and hence the numbers go along with that. I would acknowledge that this is a big number, but I think this project will provide substantial benefit to the whole east side of the city of Menasha, and we should be looking at this not as maybe just a one-time expense, but a 40-year investment that will enable our residents on the east side to safely commute from the county side of our city to Jefferson Park, or employment destinations, or other reasons they may have for coming into our community. And beyond that, it provides the opportunity to further integrate our regional trail network. This leg will let us connect effectively with Appleton. Along the Providence Terrace corridor, we already have a significant trail segment up along Midway Road. We are in the process of making connections along Manitowoc to get from Providence Terrace over into Barker Park. We just received authorization from the council to extend that trail through the Park Place development, that will enable us to get through Barker Park up to Midway. So this is all kind of part of our regional trail web. And this will be funded out of our TIF number 9. As I mentioned, we have already generated about over $20 million of increment in that district, and that would be producing somewhere in the neighborhood of $500,000 a year in increment that we can use to expend TIF project expenses. So, maybe we need to split this and build this over a period of a couple of years or that sort of thing, to sort of dampen this one-year hit. But I think it's important that we proceed with making this free site.
Does anyone have questions about TIF 9? Alderman Zelensky?
Thank you, Craig. That was a long story. My question was, is most of this funded through the TIF, and I'm still concerned about this trail system connecting the east side with the west side. So these people feel like they live in Menasha. Right now, it almost looks like Appleton. Until we get a grandiose link between the two that makes it, for the big sign, welcome to Menasha, are they ever gonna really feel like they're in Menasha?
Well, I mean, there's a couple of things going with that. As most of you know, the Menasha School District, we have some territory in Calumet County, but it does not extend that far. And part of that disjointedness is related to the fact that, we do not have a school district that encompasses our entire community, and that sort of discourages interaction with families and kids, and that building that sense of community. And we're trying to overcome that by as we build our residential neighborhoods to ensure we have connectivity between them, not just all cul-de-sacs and that sort of thing. And we have been building this trail system, sort of link by link, as opportunities present themselves. And this is a further endeavor to do so. One of the things that's really missing in our bigger picture here is the Manitowoc Road connection. A lot of people bike Manitowoc Road or want to bike Manitowoc Road, but it's just not safe. It's narrow, the ditches are steep, and it's just not accommodating for that. However, we will get to a point in time, and because that is a collector, it's on the regional system, we have good prospects of getting outside funds to support the reconstruction. And when that gets reconstructed, it would be reconstructed to an urban standard where we have not just facilities for the vehicles, but facilities for bikes and pedestrians as well. That may be some time out, but the city's here for a long time, and I think the experience across the Fox cities is that these trail systems get developed segment by segment as opportunities present themselves, and as each of these connections grow, so do the benefit.
Yes, but what I was kind of getting to is, we're building a trail across the river. Why can't we build an overpass over this highway so they have a safe place to connect? Right now, there is no safe way. I don't want people hopscotching through a roundabout on the corner of Highway 10 and 114. That is not going to be a safe route to bicycle for anybody,
Well,
experienced or not.
we've been informed, that roundabout, there was some preliminary planning done for Highway 10 improvements. And as part of that, there was a plan for what the Oneida Street corridor was going to look like. There was to be a roundabout at 10-114. I believe there was one to be at Manitowoc as well. And together with that, we were going to get sidewalks and maybe a bike lane. But then going east, we would also have an urban section there going out, I think it was to Fire Lane 1. I'm not exactly sure on that. But as you were indicating, that was to be a roundabout. Well, that whole plan has been pushed back until the late 20s. So they're going to be resurfacing Oneida Street, and that's going to last probably 20 years before we get into a reconstruct mode. And so that intersection at 10-114 isn't going to change until they get there. So there will be signals, crosswalks, and that kind of accommodation.
But is there any opportunity through a grant writing to work with the town of Menasha, the city of Appleton, and Menasha to get some kind of overpass there? Just to connect these. I don't care if it's totally in Menasha or in part in the town of Menasha, but all these communities are connected together by that, and they all get across that highway.
I don't
People spend a
disagree
lot of
that-
time running a grant to get across the river where we already have bridges. Let's make a safe route to cross that highway.
I don't see that that would be contrary to anything of what we're doing today, though, because we would get people down
Yes.
there, and then, maybe we do this, just with the signalization
But the
now.
traffic is just gonna get worse, and I get scared every time you go through a signalization. You hope they stop. Thank you. It's just my point of view on getting across that highway safely and connecting the city east side with the west side.
Alderman Taylor?
Greg, being a federal US Highway 10, I know when they built out the new 4-lane highway out west of town, they had a couple underpasses for bike trails that went through there. 441 near Kimberly has underpasses too, and I know there's some federal dollars that would help. It's called Safe Roads to Schools or something like that. You think there would be an opportunity here to look at the federal and state with this federal highway to either overpass or underpass it for the safety?
Is there opportunity? Yep, I think we could. There's a grant cycle for these enhancement grants, and the programs are continually, they're either adding to or ratcheting back the funds that are available and what kinds of things are eligible. When we get to the reconstruction of Highway 10, then we are obligated to address that pedestrian and bike component of it. But in the interim, if a case can be made that this is essential for safety, perhaps funding would be available to us.
And maybe that opportunity lies both with the federal, with Highway US 10, and the state with 114 near that intersection. 441 has an overpass near Kernan Avenue for bikes and pedestrians. So I think we really need to somehow put that opportunity on schedule here for connecting all these trails.
I think part of what would be needed to substantiate that grant application would be some documentation of, okay, how many people are actually crossing that highway at that location. If it's 5 a day, are you going to worry about it? Maybe not, but if it's 200, that might be.
But with the relocation of 10 onto the 441 and then off on the 441, I would think that would trigger some sort of mechanism that says, okay, the federal government, they seem to always have those numbers when something happens, this happens, and maybe we have that opportunity at this time where 441 and US 10 being put together and then unloading on highway on Oneida Street and then onto 114. So I think there's probably a lot of opportunities there, and I don't know if your department, if you have the grant writer capability or looking into that. I know you use some outside services at times.
Well, for that sort of thing, the Regional Planning Commission, they're the metropolitan planning organization relating to highway planning in this area. And so we would approach them initially to explore what sources of funds may be out there, and then they could steer us along with the staff at DOT to see whether this has any prospect.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I really appreciate everybody's support on this. For years, I felt like I was the only person in this room who had oxygen for this topic. And exactly what Alderman Zelinski said about the folks out in District 8 feeling like we're really not part of the community, because if you couldn't get in a car and get to the other side of town, a town of 17,000 people, you weren't getting there. Not safely, that's for sure. And I know Greg went on for a while about the process of all this, and I talked to the mayor about it a week or so ago, and asked him to be prepared to talk about some of this, because this is getting very, very frustrating for me. As slow as what the trail is, and the parts of the trails that we've lost in the past already, and that we try to put this whole thing together, I'm starting to wonder if I'm ever going to be able to use some of these trails to get to the west side of Menasha without being done in a wheelchair, because it's really starting to get old and it's taken a long time. And the topic that Alderman Zelinski brought up and that Alderman Taylor talked about getting across Oneida Street, Highway 10, 114, even though we can get there, it is still definitely a challenge. And I could only hope that through time, and I've talked to Director Radke about it, of course, and stuff, trying to work with the DOT that somehow, especially in 2020 when they do the repaving, that we do something about being able to safely get pedestrians, bicyclists, and so on across that intersection, because that definitely will be a challenge. And we have the trail that'll take us all the way to Jefferson Park, and I know every time we have a special event at Jefferson Park, or you know, be it Seafood Fest or 4th of July, whatever it is, whenever I see some of my neighbors get on their bike and head that way, they're not taking kids. It's just the adults now, that the adults are old enough to do it, and it really is tough. And we are making progress. It's slow progress. You know, we're getting little bits and pieces done, and whatever we can do to expedite some of this and get it through is certainly greatly appreciated by the folks out in District 8, especially now that we're getting more and more housing out there. And I hate to bring this up, but one thing that gets rubbed in my face is the size of our district. It's the largest district in the city, and it generates the most tax revenue. And we're the new part of town, and a lot of energy and a lot of dollars out there, and those folks want to be able to live the lifestyle that they moved here for and that we boast about. Being able to get to our waterfront, being able to bike and commute and do all those things. And I can't tell you how disappointed I was when we lost this grant, and then we thought we had a plan, and we're still 2 years out, and we're not, you know, we're 3 years out, and we're on surface value, we're not any further, because we haven't put any equipment on the ground to actually get this put in. We're getting Providence Terrace put in, which will be nice to take us from Oneida Street there, but this is an important link of the trail that's very, very important that we get going and get some of these other parts done. And Greg, I really appreciate your input on this and where we're at, because I was kind of prepared to talk about it for a little bit, so I appreciate it. Thank you. And thank everybody else for their support in trying to get this accomplished. It's pretty important to the folks out in District 8.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I share Alderman Benner and Alderman Zelinski's concern about the trail system in our area. I think it's critical for the quality of life that we have an interconnected trail. I think it's a safety issue. Anybody that drives around town in the middle of winter knows that people are commuting by bicycle not only during the summer but in the winter months as well. So it's a primary source of transportation for a lot of the citizens of this city, and I would be in favor of whatever we can do to expedite these trail systems and get them interconnected. Thank you.
Anyone else on TIF 9? Okay, we'll move on to, I'm guessing, TIF 10, right? On page 188.
Okay, TIF 10 is the 3rd Street Market, and was the cinema across the street from it, and then it kind of snakes around and includes the Alcan parts of horizontal Barris on River Street. And what I've proposed for this year, and the number that you see at the end of this year, the 277,000, that consists of the $250,000 community development investment grant that we got from the state and contributed to the 3rd Street Market. And then the other 27,000 is tax increment from 5th District, and that was part of our development agreement with the Food Mill 2 in order to get that facility established. So next year, we will have a similar $27,000 obligation to the 3rd Street Market, and I've added $25,000 in engineering to put together a plan for dealing with this sort of this end of Main Street and Taco Street, and that corridor in there, to see what kind of improvements that would be possible and desired. And then the other fund of $25,000 I put in there was to perhaps create some sort of facade improvement program to enable us to get those buildings looking better in that corridor at Taco Street south. That would be the
47,305, 562, 2102, and 7001. It's right in the, under community development, urban redevelopment, kind of in the
page
middle of the
188.
page. Any other questions about TIF 10? TIF 11 is on page 189.
Okay. This is the Gilbert site. At long last, we're nearing completion of the demolition and site clearance work. The trail that was funded by the city and the stewardship grants has largely been completed. And we're looking to, there's some additional work, some final grading and seeding and so forth, but the Gilbert site as a redevelopment parcels, they're almost ready to go. The sites have been listed. I know that there's been a lot of activity on there, but we're finally getting to the stage where those sites are in appearance that might be suitable for someone looking for a location like that. We're hoping that that development will come sooner rather than later. We still do have some obligations under our development agreement with the PJC group. As you may recall, in 2013, the city bought out a lot of the development assistance that was owed to them, accelerated their incentive payments in order to minimize the accumulation of interest costs. So a lot of that was kind of down then. We still have this $16,000 amount that's due to them next year, and then I put in another $10,000 of engineering in the event that some project may come along that would need the city's involvement with infrastructure and that sort of thing.
I did just talk to EJ a couple days ago. They did change their realtor. They were looking for someone a little bit more aggressive, so they just changed the listing agent within the last month or two. Any other questions on TIF 11? Otherwise, we can go on to TIF 12, is on 191 and 192.
Okay. TID 12 is Lake Park Villas and Ponds of Menasha and cottages at Lake Park, as well as the Lake Park Square commercial. So we have some of my staff time budgeted out there. The big number you see, that $270,000, that is part of the development agreement that the exists between the city and its redevelopment authority. This is, the RDA essentially administers that whole development process out there. And there is a contribution back to the city of $215,000 each year that shows up elsewhere in the budget, so that's not a number. For next year, that will continue. The other number that you see there is $7,500. We received a grant from the Energies. This was originally in 2011 to help us replace all of those, were like some sort of poplar tree that was going up into the wires, and they were planted all along, that they were cut down and replaced, and that was partially funded by We Energies and partially funded by Menasha Utilities. We requested some additional funds from We Energies to extend that planting from basically where the silos were at Lake Park Villas along 114 up to Lake Park, and this $7,500 is sort of to match that the Energies grant.
So does anyone have questions about TIF 12? Do you have a increment number on that one, Greg? And that one is pretty substantial as well.
The increment on TIF 12 is $13,202,000 change.
It's been growing rather rapidly. They just took out, was it 11 more building permits the past week or so?
Yeah, and so far this year, Lexington has built 16 homes in Bonds Menasha with a value of about $2.6 million. There were 2 other homes that were, actually 3 other homes that were built in or portion of Lake Park Villas. I don't have a number for those. Those were more expensive. I'd say that's probably $600,000 or so, something like that. So we've had some success finally with getting some properties moving in Lake Park. We still have an agreement with Cypress Homes to build more models. We are negotiating a similar sort of agreement with Vans for them to build model homes out there. There were homes built by another entity out there, just an individual came in and was interested in the lot, and purchased it, hired a contractor, so we're happy to see that as well. So I think just by virtue of the activity out there, that whole neighborhood, we are, beginning to see a turnaround in our lot sales in the villages.
Alderman Zaleski,
Thank
sir.
you. I don't know if this question is for Greg or Debbie, or I mean, Peggy. Due to the lot sales, how much was that contribute to the debt payment? Or is any of that lot sales going to the debt payment at this point yet?
Well, the lot sales, it's, if I can do the math in my head, but it's each time a lot is sold, the city collects $5,700 per lot. So we got 75,000 or something on that neighborhood back from those lot sales.
And the rest is going towards the infrastructure and the TIF that was created. So that's going directly that.
Answer that, maybe, but how long it is
The first debt payment's not until 2017. We're only paying interest. I think interest is only being paid, isn't that correct?
TIF
12,
But
right?
is any of this going back to the city yet, or has it all been pushed in?
TIF 12 is in the negative.
Because I was told as soon as we start selling lots, we start paying down the debt that was crippling this whole area. And
If I'm hearing what Dan's asking correctly, I think kind of in a roundabout way, yes. But let me make sure that Peggy agrees with this. We get about $300,000 a year from the RDA that goes back to the correct? We're getting something back from the RDA. 215. Okay, so we're using that. Okay. Mm-hmm. True.
I mean, maybe the
Mhm.
answer's right, but
But we are applying that 215 towards debt payments. Well, towards debt that we owe as a city, regular GO debt. Yes.
Okay, in a roundabout way, I thought that, I was told, I'm just pulling this out of the air, $3 million worth of property that we owed on out there, and we're gonna sell these lots and start paying down that $3 million, but we're just paying interest.
3.9 million, and it starts in
That
2017.
was pretty close.
And start paying that principal down until 2017.
Okay, thank you.
And, you know, this is the first year, I think, that we really had positive increment out of TIF 12. So, I mean, $13 million, maybe 300,000. So, you know, it's starting to help.
Other questions on TIF 12? TIF 13 should be pretty simple. We just got through doing that, so should be fresh in everyone's memory.
So the engineering, that's kind of self-explanatory. We're spending some funds for engineering now to design the walkway and Mill Street area. That may lead us into an area where we want to expand upon that next year. I'm not sure whether that's going to happen or not, but I wanted to put something in there as a placeholder. The big number there consists of several things. 500,000 of that is a community development investment grant that we received from the BBC. There's a $500,000 sort of advance or contribution from the city. And then we have $100,000 investment for the walkway and sidewalk.
So further questions on TIF 13?
When is that company showing up here, Greg, with,
Well, they've been up here a couple of times now. They're in the information gathering, and they're working on some preliminary design concepts. We'll be seeing something more back again here, November, mid-November.
I did send you the invite for that a couple days ago. Yeah. So I just assumed you were working, that you weren't here last night, so.
just asking Greg here
Sure.
what the timeline was?
So it's because of the occupancy of the office tower there, you know, that's really pressing things. We need to get that walkway built in March, early April. So we're gonna really in a press timeframe to get getting it all done. So I think we're gonna have some neat concepts and hopefully on board with that in the near-term future.
Thank you.
So the last one is the RDA, and it's on page 194.
Okay, not a lot of change here. The stormwater went up a little bit, and then the number at the bottom, at 30,000 figure for 2015, that was the city's essentially dues to the Lake Park Villas Homeowners Association for our percentage share of the common area maintenance, and I propose that be increased by 5% next year.
Any questions on the RDA? So that is the last page on here. If we don't have any other questions, I would accept a motion to adjourn. So motion and a second. All those in favor? Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Broadcasts of the City of Menasha Administration Committee, Board of Public Works, and Common Council meetings are produced by University Studios of the University of Wisconsin-Fox Valley. Menasha residents and interested parties can obtain information about these meetings and meeting agendas from the city website, www.menasha.org. www.cityofmenasha-wi.gov. Expression of opinions regarding City of Menasha issues or about these broadcasts can be made by contacting the Mayor's Office, 920-967-5117. Contacting their City Alderman. Contact information appears on the website. Completing the electronic feedback form on the website. All public portions of the meetings are recorded in entirety and are not edited for playback.